Yeah.
Is muting some people that weren't muted. Okay. So hello, everyone. This is Chuck Tirone, Reading's Conservation Administrator. This meeting will be conducted in hybrid format, in person and virtually, consistent with Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023, which further extends certain COVID-19 measures regarding remote participation in public meetings until March 31st, 2025. Please note, not all items listed may be in fact discussed, and other items not listed may be brought up for discussion to the extent permitted by law. This agenda includes those matters which can be reasonably anticipated to be discussed at this meeting. Please note that this meeting is being recorded. All material for this meeting is available at the following link, which I will provide in the chat. Martha Moore, the Conservation Chair, will facilitate this meeting. Please note that there will be public comment period for each hearing. For each vote taken tonight, this meeting will be conducted by roll call vote. We'll begin with a roll call attendance. Martha, can you please review tonight's agenda and take the attendance?
Sure, and I'm calling this meeting to order at 7:10.
And Walter has his hand up, so I'm not
Right.
sure what that is about.
Let's check with Walter before we start.
We're not recording yet?
That's what he said.
Walter, we need you. Thank you.
Okay,
No, I know that I was going to do that. Thank you.
thanks,
That's
Walter.
that's my job.
Yeah. Appreciate it.
Used to be my job. Okay, so I called us to order at 7:10. Would you please answer present when I call your name?
Recording in progress.
Walter,
Walter Talbot, member, present.
Bill,
Bill McCants, member present.
Tony,
Tony Rodolakis, member present.
Andrew,
Andrew Driven, member present.
Brian,
Brian Bowe, vice chair present.
and Martha Moore, Chair, present. And the agenda tonight includes a presentation about the Millette, Soms and Morgan construction project. And then 252 to 262 Main Street, 71 Lila Lane, 44 Chequaset, 0 Forest Street, which is located between 126 and 106 Forest Street. And then some old new business, including voting for the commission's liaison to the Community Preservation Act, some issues about certificates of compliance. We will not be discussing Bear Meadow land use. We're going to do that on April 24th. And administrator's report and minutes for approval. Okay, so first thing is the Millette Soms Morgan project, and who's here to present?
Sure. So before we get into that, and we have people here for it, I'm just going to give a quick little introduction. The Millette Soms Morgan constructed stormwater wetland system is the result of a regional watershed-wide effort to reduce flooding in the downstream communities by creating offline storage to treat areas upstream within the Mystic River watershed. The Mystic River watershed totals 76 square miles of land that drains towards the Mystic River. Its headwaters begin in Reading, Massachusetts, with the Abidjona River, which runs through the Millette Soms and Morgan land. It flows through a number of municipalities before it drains into Boston Harbor. Climate change-driven extreme rainfall is already causing smaller tributaries such as the Abidjona River to overtop their banks, leading to local and downstream flooding. I'd like to briefly mention the Reading project team. We have Community Development Director Andrew McNichol, who's not here tonight, and Senior Civil Engineer Alec Trzicki, who's sitting right over there in the corner. And myself, Conservation Administrator Chuck Tirone, And Horsley Witten supported this project, and we're lucky enough to have Senior Water Resource Engineer Jennifer Relstab helping us on this project. Jennifer, I know that you're online. I've given a brief introduction. Can you introduce yourself and your team and start tonight's presentation?
Will do. Good evening, members of the commission and the public who are here tonight. My name is Jennifer Relstab. I'm with Horsley Witten Group. I'm a senior water resources engineer, and we've been working on this project since 2021, and we're happy to be here tonight to provide you an update. Chuck, can I share my screen?
Yes.
All right. You should be able to see it now.
We can.
All right. The project team, as Chuck mentioned, is made up of members of the town of Reading, Horsley Witten Group. Those staff are not here tonight except for myself. I also wanted to give a mention to two other partners, the Mystic River Watershed Association, who's been with us as a project partner throughout, helping us with our public engagement, and Michelle Rowden, who's been our MVP, or Municipal Vulnerability Preparedness program coordinator, and has been a great supporter of our project. Chuck gave a great introduction of the site. Just for those who are not as familiar, the site is located off of Willow Street and Lowell Street, and abuts MBTA commuter rail property, as well as the Aberjona River to the east, and of course the abutters on the Willow Street side. For those who haven't been able to attend any of our previous presentations in the past few years, I just wanted to give a little bit of a background as to how we got to the point today. The site was selected as one of 425 sites. It's a project that was done through the Upper Mystic Working Group of the Resilient Mystic Collaborative. This is a group that's formed under and as part of the Mystic River Watershed Association. The main project goal there was to really look for opportunistic sites across the Upper Mystic River watershed to address both local and regional flooding, as well as improve connectivity and access to open space. And under that project, in 2020, a concept design was developed. HW came on board under a contract in 2021, and we used data from the field, modeling input, as well as public input, and developed design that we were able to permit back in 2021. We were then able in 2022 to continue our public engagement. You can see a photo here of Chuck and Andrew and others on a site walk that we did, and really trying to seek as much public input as we can from the broader community and abutters. And we were able to, with the support of the public, our community leaders and state representatives, to get the funding that we needed to really complete those construction documents. And with that, we were able to bid the project in 2023 and start in the summer of 2023, around July. Just wanted to highlight here, the image on the right is a aerial flyover view of the site back in the fall. And it's obviously changed a little bit now, and we're hoping to get some more images of that for the commission and the public to share shortly. But just to highlight again what our project priorities were, we wanted to create open space improvements and site amenities that harmonize with the existing environment, knowing that there's the Aberjona and those wetlands that are already existing on site. We wanted to help create accessible pathways for pedestrians and others to use, restore native plant and tree species on site, implement nature-based heat mitigation strategies, so improving that tree canopy, that healthy tree canopy, and provide management and treatment of stormwater. The final design here, this graphic, very similar to what we've shown in some of our previous presentations here. This site is, the design was a constructed wetland, is a constructed wetland. Constructed wetlands are engineered nature-based systems. They use these systems of shallow and deep pools and marshes to treat native vegetation. I'm going to use my pointer here just to help us with kind of describing the system. The water comes in from Lowell Street, a very large drainage area, about 40 acres in total. Eventually, right now it's about, I think, 10 that's going to drain off of Lowell Street and come in a first flush to these sediment forebays in this area. And then it goes through these systems, as I mentioned, shallow and deep pools that allow that water to settle and flow through our vegetation. So we've got all that native vegetation to help us filter all that water. We did have and do have on site an existing wetland that's shown here by these dashed lines. And we really wanted to protect that and preserve that existing area as much as possible. So we have a limited crossing here, which we permitted with the Conservation Commission to allow that water to travel between these cells on the east side here and the west side over here. And then continues on through a system of deep and shallow pools all the way to the end of the system, which then overflows back into the Aberjona. So the water is a highlight here, but even more so of the benefits to the public are the accessible pathways. We've got 8-foot wide accessible permeable paths that extend from the new parking lot, which has 4 spaces and a handicap. And that it goes all the way through from Willow Street effectively now to Lowell Street. It also makes the connection here to the Hunt Street path, which currently isn't part of our project, but we know that that will be something that the Conservation Commission and others will look to in the future. The other things that are important here in terms of amenities, we have areas where we are going to have benches for seating. Even right here, you can see there are interactive moments, stepping stones, overlooks, signage, and boardwalks that allow users, residents to be able to effectively go through and look at the wetland in a more immersive nature. Sorry, I'm gonna pause this. See if I can turn that off. Maybe I can't. All right. So I wanted to highlight today the work that's going on site. Even though we've had a lot of challenges, which I'll get to in a minute, our contractor, T Ford, has made great progress on the site. We've completed about 65–70% of the work. On the east side, which is the Lowell Street side of the project, most of the rough and fine grading is complete. Our paths are mostly in place. Boardwalks and some of our site amenities are complete, and we're almost ready to start planting, which we're hoping will be either this month or early next month. The work in the wetland crossing is still ongoing. We've completed most of the subsurface work in that area. We are just waiting for the bridge to be completed, but we're leaving that open right now. That is a major source of access for the contractor to get from one side of the site to the other. The driveway and the retaining wall that exists on the Willow Street driveway access has been mostly completed, and the parking area itself is mostly completed. That will be paved towards the end of the project. And lastly, the area that we're currently active is sort of the last couple cells that we have on the site, which are the harder ones because they're the closest to the groundwater level. So it takes a little bit more time for us to complete those, but we're hoping that within the next couple of months, we're going to be ready to go. I'd like to talk now a little bit about some of the changes that we've had over the course of the project. We did do a tree health assessment, which was completed. We did a walkthrough with town staff and the town arborist, and we did look at tree health and some concerns that the contractor had identified in concert with the staff. And so we did take down a few additional trees that we thought would be necessary in progress. And so we are going to be adding some additional trees and shrubs to the counts to be able to compensate for those additional trees removed. There were some additional conflicts, utility conflicts and coordination that has been necessary through this project. At Lowell Street, we did have to make a slight pipe location change to accommodate some of the existing infrastructure that wasn't identified in plans. And we did have to coordinate with National Grid. There is a gas line that runs underneath the Willow Street driveway, and so we did have to coordinate with them to make sure that we were obviously protecting their infrastructure and, of course, the safety of the contractor and our staff as well. I mentioned some challenges. I'm sure all you guys are aware that we've had some really challenging weather over the last 9 months or so. July, which is when the contractor started, it was the second wettest year on record. We've had a very rainy beginning of 2024 already, so that has made it even more difficult for us to work and progress as quickly as we had hoped, but we are making good progress, as I said, and I think we're pretty close to our schedule as we had discussed it back in the summer. There are very high levels in the Aberjona River and higher groundwater elevations, particularly compared to a couple of years ago when we started this design work. But we are seeing a lot of really great progress, and we're seeing that the system, as we designed it, is working. Just to show you some photos going from left to right, you can see kind of as we started to do some of the site work, site clearing, you can see how that sort of opened up sight lines a little bit. We got to grading, we found obviously variations in soils, and I'll talk about that too in a little bit. But really starting to shape some of these areas was really exciting. We did have, despite the warm winter, we did have a little bit of snow. You can see in the middle picture here just how nice this looks when it's finished. And as we go to the right, you can see some of that finished work in those photos, some of the boulders that we have up, some of the crossings that we are installing to help, again, sort of have the residents and users immerse themselves in the wetland. Just to highlight some of the challenges, these photos here show, you can kind of see here, this is a little bit of an impromptu gauge that our contractor set up for us to measure those water levels as we see flooding on site. The water level is quite high. It's about 2 feet in this particular image, about 2 feet higher than typical normal flood levels. And you can see here on the lower left, this is after our, I think, January 10th, 9th or 10th event that the site, was experiencing some flooding. But with that constructed wetland and the grading on site, a lot of that was able to be kept and protecting both the wetland and our infrastructure on site. Just this middle picture here is just another picture of that sort of wetland inundation. And this is actually, this area is where the wetland crossing is, and our bridge will be, our boardwalk, excuse me, will be crossing through between the two sites. Some other challenges that I didn't mention, this is knotweed for those who are familiar with the area. This area has a significant, actually the area we're about to be working in has a significant area of Japanese knotweed, which the commission provided permission for us to conduct some treatments of back in the fall and the year prior. So we'll be looking to address that in the upcoming spring and summer. The other challenge that we've seen are some of the soils. We noticed that there's quite a lot of trash on site, probably from urban historical fill. And we have seen some areas that have been a little bit deeper and more challenging than we had anticipated. But again, the contractor has been really doing a great job working through this with us. So just a couple more milestones that we have. Again, we are hoping that we're going to be planting at least the east side, the Lowell Street side of the site come this month or early May. We're hopeful that the remainder of the wetland cells in the path will be completed this summer, around June, and then substantial completion of the work will happen in July. Whether or not we're totally complete will be dependent on the planting and the seeding, which typically, needs to happen in a sort of a spring or a fall timeframe. So that will be sort of determine where we are with completion. Our hope is that the site will open broadly to the public in the fall. And I put the website here just for those members of the public who are interested. We will have regular updates on that website. If there are any questions, there are contacts on that website to get more information. And that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer.
So, Alex, do you want to add anything to that, or should we just go right to questions?
Oh, can they hear me if I'm here or should I come closer?
No, well, you have to stand.
Yeah, I don't really have anything to add. Great presentation, Jen. I'm just here for additional questions or support if anything comes up. I don't really have anything else at the time, so thank you.
That was Alex Rozicki, senior town engineer.
Right, and during her presentation, it looked like there was somebody trying to get in on the telephone, connecting by phone. Did you notice that at all?
Yes.
Everyone's in, there's no one waiting.
No one waiting, okay. I couldn't figure out what that was all about. Okay. Can I ask for public comment at this point or questions?
Sure.
If you have questions or comments, raise your hand. I'll call on you. You can come up to the podium and state your questions or comments so that you can be heard on the microphone so the people listening in by Zoom can hear you.
Sure, and anyone on Zoom, just go to the reactions button and use the raise hand function. It'll pop up to the top of the screen and I'll be able to see you.
Okay, Karen.
Well, Karen Herrick, Reading Select Board. So excited about this project. Thank you all. Sorry, there you are. And thank you, Jennifer, for that update. So I did want to just let you know that Representative Moulton's office was in touch with me. They're going to be visiting the district. So great to see this timeline. So, he tossed out, one of his staff members tossed out a date of May 20th, which seems like it's a little bit early based on that timeline. But he's very excited about the project and we'll look forward to celebrating with us. So thank you. And also I'll just say thank you for being willing to participate in the Community Preservation Act committee. Thank you.
I could just follow up with that. If he does want to do a site visit on the northern, I call it the northern half. I think Jen called it the eastern half, but the side closer to Lowell Street, we could do maybe a small group with him if he's interested. He did provide a lot of funding for the project, so I don't want to I would never turn him away, but May is probably pretty messy on the other side. So we could talk. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Thanks for the support.
Thank you. Anybody else? Questions or comments?
I don't see any on the screen.
On the
So you would use, at the bottom of the screen, you would see the reaction button. And if you open that up, you'll see a raise hand function. Any questions from the commissioners?
Yes, come on up. And give your name and address.
Elaine Parker, 256 Lowell Street, Reading. I'm on the Lowell Street side. And I'm noticing that a lot of the water is coming closer to our homes in the conservation area. It's been an awful,
Yep.
I mean, I know we've had exceptionally wet weather, but it's, all winter, there's been puddles of, ice back there that we've never seen before. And I have to say, I mean, I missed some of these other meetings, but I'm devastated by the loss of trees and everything back there. It was such a quaint little spot to walk for all the residents. And now so far I'm not so happy with it, but what can I do? It's done. But the trees that have been chopped down are just devastating. It looks like it's been decimated.
Yeah. So it's best, there is that shock value once we cut the
Yeah.
trees down. It's something that we all say every time a project happens. I'd like to, do a reunion a year from now, year and a half from now, after we have everything planted. And typically what ends up happening is the trees take root, flowers bloom. It's a different spot, but it still is a quaint little spot that's located close enough to walk to for all the people on Willow and Lowell Street. As far as the water goes, we've been dealing with some wildlife engineers known as Beaver all winter long. And so that's something that we'd have to take care of during the spring. So to breach the dams in the wintertime and we tried to keep it at a certain level that would allow the beaver to maintain their life, but not drain the ponds out. Now that it's warming up, we're going to be able to look at that a little bit closer. And there's also some areas in the stream that may be able to open up with some upcoming projects to kind of get the sticks and brush out of the streamway.
So
So-
that's what's happened at the bridge because that's completely clogged.
Yeah, that's,
And I think that's why the water's backing up. So it's beavers.
yeah, we want to try
I got your
something.
email today and
Beaver deceiver
we
in that
talked
spot.
about it. You know, it's a perfect home for a beaver, but
Absolutely.
we're dealing with a lot of water on our site. So we've, like Chuck said, tried to manage it as best we can without taking major corrective action. And we're talking about installing a beaver deceiver at the bridge so that Public Works, Engineering, Conservation is all aware that that water is too high right now. The residents of Hunt Street can't even get to Millet if they wanted to,
Mhm.
and that's certainly not the goal. So the water is too high. We are aware of it. And this project has not discharged any water to the Aberjona River. We've
Okay.
only taken water. So I think once we deal with the beaver situation on a more permanent basis, this project will certainly not make things worse for anyone on either side, Lowell Street or Willow Street.
Okay, yeah, because it's just so obvious that
Yeah, it's bad.
getting closer.
Yeah, we're aware of it and we're working on a plan to knock
Okay.
that down a little
Alright.
bit.
One more question. Is this a state-funded project or is this a town-funded project or a
I'm
combination?
gonna let Jen go through all of our funding if you would like, Jen.
Oh, you don't have
Sure.
to go-
Yeah. So the project design was funded through the Municipal Vulnerability Preparedness Grant. This project is the construction of this project is partially funded by them. The town also has received direct congressional spending. Thank you to Seth Moulton and other state reps, which funds the remainder of that construction budget. And I believe we've, gotten some supplementary help elsewhere. And I think, I don't know if Alex.
Yeah,
wants to speak to that.
it was about a $2 million federal congressional direct spending grant, and MVP came in about 1.5 or 1.8 million grant. The town has matches on that as a percentage. And the select board kicked in some ARPA money to get this thing kicked off, and we've used some supplementary stormwater enterprise funds. So we've kind of picked away at different pieces to lessen the burden because, it is quite a big substantial money ticket for the town, but we really haven't dipped into any reserves or anything like that on a
Okay, great.
big basis.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Can I add one more thing about the trees, just because that might be a comment for others. Reading has a tree and shrub policy, and because of the significant removal of the trees on the site, we did have to come up with a replacement schedule. As per the permit, we identified about 56 deciduous trees about 6 inches DBH or higher that needed to be removed. The plan that we proposed was about 61 trees with 90 replacement shrubs and almost 24,000 planting plugs that will go in our wetlands. We are going to be increasing those replacement trees and shrubs now. So we'll have almost, I think, or over 100 shrubs and about, I think, 80 replacement trees as part of this project. So, like Chuck said, I do think that over time we're going to see that tree canopy come back, and it'll be healthier for our wildlife as well.
Anybody else with comments or questions from the public or from members of the Conservation Commission? Andrew.
Yeah, I just wanted to, I noticed the water, I'm on the Hunt side, so the water, I'm aware it's from the beaver as well. I'm not opposed to getting rid of the beaver, if that's what you're saying, but I'm not upset that it's there, but I am worried about the quantity of water quantity. And from my point of view, if I can't access all this project, so I want to make sure that the trail that's there, if it needs to get modified, that it can get coordinated this summer so that it aligns with the opening of the larger project.
That the beavers that are out there, trapping them is not a consideration at this moment. This is conservation land and in a forested wetland and
That's where it wants to be,
marsh,
yeah.
and it's so, but obviously that's something that may have to be addressed if we can't manage this through a beaver deceiver. And there's maintenance involved with that also. It's not, set it and forget it. So it has to be looked at. These things can work and the beavers can move on and the water level can drop on its own also. But no, we're not at that point. We're only talking about removing the dam to a level that's acceptable. You have to make sure that you don't lower it too much because then the beaver will notice that and just move upstream and create another dam. You just want to bring it down and set up that beaver deceiver to siphon the water through what they think is their dam, and everything should work out fine. So that's the plan right now. It's just waiting for the weather and waiting for the volunteers.
So if the water on the existing trail that goes to Hunt doesn't go down substantially, do we need to bring in the trail committee to try to coordinate any work that needs to be done to that, to help? That's some of the things.
They could, but it's pretty flooded and they would have to do a boardwalk from one end to the other just about. But so I think just dropping the water level is what we're talking about. Now, it may raise up every spring, and that's always what happened. I get the most flooding calls in spring. And so that's just something that always happens. But if we can manage that, the water upstream of the Abidjona from the Abidjona Trail Bridge, then I think we'll be okay.
And that's actually totally disconnected
Yeah.
from the project.
But I, obviously we don't know what wildlife is going to do, and we see where the beaver dam is now and we'll attack that, but there might be something further upstream that we have to take into consideration if they get spooked and move on.
Okay. And then I just comment on the tree. I noticed how substantial it looked when the trees were taken down, but I do have confidence that these projects, landscape projects, they layer in over time. And I did appreciate the way it looked before, but I think we're gonna have something that may not be in a year, honestly. It'll probably be more like 5-10 years. It'll be much better than what it was.
Okay. Jay Fleury, asking to have a question. He's got his hand up. Jay? Yeah, unmute and just state your name for the record.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Joseph Fleury, 20 Willow Street. We've been really enjoying, my son in particular, watching all the construction trucks behind our home. It's a tremendous project. We can't wait to actually get out on the trail. One question we have is around 20 Willow Street and closer to the 129 side, we noticed that there seemed to be an extension of the path pretty much to within 5 feet of our existing property line that didn't really appear to be on the original plans. Was there a kind of a change in the plan to extend the path around both sides of the pond at some point in time? And in terms of the close proximity to the property lines, is there going to be any additional shrubbery or trees planted to help with kind of the privacy of existing walkers that would be on the trail, the new trail there along the property lines?
I don't know if that's, I'll start out. How's that? So
Yeah.
that path was always there, but it wasn't, so unfortunately it wasn't on one of the first, conceptual plans that we had and we put out. But it was always discussed because we wanted to use the entire area that's conservation land. So we corrected that, and on our conceptual plan that you see tonight, you can see that path. And as far as trees and shrubs go, we do have a tree and shrub plan, and we'll be following that. Extra trees that were cut down. There may be an opportunity to place those elsewhere, but what I think I'm hearing is that because everybody that borders this property get a visual barrier from others. And I think that I've been out there as much as Alex and Andrew and Jen and anyone else. And I think for most of you, you have an opportunity to, not only enjoy this area, but create your own visual shading down by the property line. So I think between the two of us, between the town doing what they've already planned to do as part of our plans that you can see on the Millett Soms and Morgan website, planting native plants in this area would also help. That's my answer. Alex?
Yeah, I'm sure Jen can speak to the exact landscaping plan or if she has the plans, but there is quite a robust planting plan on all sides and all bordering properties. The wetland piece there, I don't know exactly where 20 is, will be a little harder to plant, but like Chuck said, the path was always there. It wasn't on the concept, but it's in the construction documents that are on the website. The only change to the path was that we found the area to be quite wet and the soils to be a little clay in that area. So in order to make a more accessible path and easier construction wise and less maintenance for the Trails Committee and Conservation, we have decided to make it more of a stone pathway to match the rest of the site. So that would be the only change to that path.
Fantastic. Thank you very much.
I'd say thank you. Sure. So any other questions from anyone who's attending tonight's meeting or out there who's viewing this virtually? Again, just use the raise hand functions.
Under the reaction.
The reaction buttons. Yeah. I think I would know by now. And we'll get to you. So any other questions?
I just have one last comment on the construction, the timeline and all that. You'll be seeing a lot of trucks entering and exiting the site over the next month or two. Due to the soil conditions on the site, the soil has to go pretty far away, and the trucks are pretty large that are going to be needing to back into the road. There'll be points where Willow Street's going to have to close for 5 minutes, and we're working with Austin Prep and the safety officers to best accommodate that. But you will start to see a lot of soil leaving the site over the next month or two. That's been a significant slowdown for us. We can only ship 25 tons of soil a day to Canada where it's going, actually. So the slowdown really is in getting this last piece of soil that's wet and a little not ideal to say, off site. And that's going to be a significant, you're going to see that you see these trucks coming in. I think we're going to try to get to 2 to 4, ramp up from 2 to 4 a day over the next month or two. And once that soil's out of here, like Jen said on the timeline, we're going to start planting the end closer to Lowell Street soon. I think people will see it greening up with the spring and it won't look as barren very soon. I see the trees budding now and, it's going to be close with the summer planting on that lower side, and which is why we're giving that ultimate opening of fall. And with all this stuff, the longer we give it to succeed, the better it's going to root. And so right now we're really targeting that fall date, but keep your ears and eyes open, and we'll provide an update in a month or two when we have a better idea on how that excavation is going.
Great. That looks like it. So I just want to thank all the abutters to this project and everybody else who is interested in this project for their patience and their support, and that you can always reach out. There's a contact information on the Conservation Division page for this project. So the Millett Soms and Morgan project, and you can reach out to myself, Alex, Andrew, and we can manage, get you an answer to your question. I just actually want to call out Mike Randoni and the Randoni family, who's been very helpful. And many, many years ago, I ran into Mike as a steward of this property, and he was taking care of the meadow. I think if it wasn't for him putting this property on the map, I never would have known about it. And, you know, maybe we wouldn't be at this point right now. So thank you, Mike. Thank you, Randoni family, and thank you all, everyone who is a supporter and a butter to this project. So thank you very much.
Montreal. Stablex in Canada.
Okay, and that ends that, and we can move on to the next.
Okay,
Thank you very much, everyone. We're gonna move on to the next project here, Alex.
thank you all for coming. Our next project is 252 to 262 Main Street. Continue the public hearing on a notice of intent filed by Saviero Phil Siniti, BLVD Reading. Pursuant to Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Wetlands Protection Act and/or the Reading Wetland Protection Bylaw, Section 7.1. The applicant is proposing site improvements, including the demolition of 3 buildings, clearing of existing vegetation, and constructing 1 mixed-use building. Other improvements to the site include construction of surface parking, landscaping, and underground utilities servicing the site. Portions of the work are within the 100-foot buffer zone to a bordering vegetated wetland. The application and plans can be viewed during regular business hours at the Town Hall Conservation Office, 16 Lowell Street, Reading, Mass., and on the Reading Conservation Division page under the project by year, Assessor's Map 11, Lot 192, 194, 196, DEP of file number 270-0779. And do we have somebody here representing this?
Yes, we have Carlton Quinn and Verio are here, but I think Carlton's going to take over. Carlton, can you unmute yourself and share your screen and give us an update on your project? I'm looking to see if you can unmute yourself. Let me try this again. Try now, Carlton.
Yep.
Okay.
Good evening, Commission. My name is Carlton Quinn with Allen and Major Associates, representing Saverio Fulsantini, the developer. Last hearing, we did run through the plans quickly with you. You hadn't had a chance to review them. So I'm sure you have some questions for me tonight. I'm happy to run through the plans again if you want me to. Just to bring you up to date, on Monday, we got a unanimous approval for site plan approval, special permit, and the stormwater from the CPDC. We had a long meeting. I'm sure there's some abutters there. Some of the items that came up a lot were the trash, the dumpster. Just to go through it, I'm sure the abutters will want some time to speak to this. But the dumpster itself, it's a 3-sided concrete dumpster with a gate enclosure. It's going to be on a concrete pad. It'll have lighting and surveillance on it, and it'll also have a hose bib to clean it off. We really tried to provide the best trash enclosure we could because we knew it was an issue, because some of the surrounding areas have dumpsters in some pretty bad repair right now, and the abutters, with right course, have concerns with the trash. And Saverio is absolutely, he's going to take care of the property. They're worried about future owners. We're happy to do whatever we can to try to mitigate the issue, but we really can't take the trash inside the building. We really do need a dumpster pad. This dumpster pad is located outside the 100-foot buffer. Barely, it's just outside the 100-foot buffer. The reason for the location of where it is we try to keep it as far away from the residential properties as possible. And we also needed to make sure that we had adequate truck access to get to the trash enclosure. Another item that the board might want to know is that the applicant agreed to provide a $7,500 donation to improve the Pineville Conservation Area as a condition of that approval with the site plan. And also, I know there's some questions regarding tree removal at the previous hearing. I can bring up our landscape plan just to show you where we're at currently. This is the original plan that was provided to you. This was a 40-unit building with 77 parking spaces and the access off of Pineville with the amenity area in the rear. And I just want to flip to where it is today. You can see we're keeping the single-family house here with a small driveway. It's many more plants and landscaping and shrubs around the site. We have 2 accesses here and providing, 4, 5, 6, 8 shade trees for the parking lot. The current proposal is to remove 44 existing trees. We're going to keep 9 existing trees and add another 60 trees, not including all the shrubs, low plantings, and perennials that we'll be adding to the site, for a total of 69 trees, which is 60 more trees than exist there today. And those were just kind of the major points I wanted to get out, and just, well, I'll leave it open to the board for any questions.
Anybody have questions? Anybody on the board that I can't see their hand raised, Chuck?
No one, I don't see anyone raising their hand at this moment online for the board. Commission, sorry.
Is there anybody here from the general public that wanted to speak on this? Sure. Can you come up and state your name and stand at the podium?
Hello, my name's Mary Richards. I live at 50 Pineville Ave. And I read the third-party review, which the commission had voted at the December 13th meeting to have conducted, along with an evaluation of the impact on the wildlife habitat. I really appreciate that step was taken. It's very informative about the life in that wetland zone. I don't understand why a project of over an acre of land needs to extend into a buffer. I don't know the number of feet, I have to say, because I haven't inspected the plans, but that's a primary concern of mine. I know that there are major plans to develop South Main Street, which actually I believe are independent of this project. Although I guess you could say this is in South Main Street as well. I think the zoning changes at the town and state level that have superseded prior zoning are kind of the tail wagging the dog, so to speak. That is out of your control. I appreciate that. However, as we move forward with additional projects, I think the fact that I guess you would call it variance perhaps, or that concession would be made to allow extension into protected wetlands. The fact that that might pass with this project, I think that's an unfortunate, it would be an unfortunate precedent on a particular development that's straddling over under the zoning into a residential neighborhood and straddling into abutting wetlands. So those are a few of my main points, and I have a couple of comments and questions. So one is that I am more than motivated to start trying to do the research about whether this is a vernal pool. Participating in the meetings you've had and seeing the level of detail and complexity with all of the issues that you face with the proposals that come before you. I did not know, but I guess I might have guessed that it is up to the public to do the research to have vernal pools officially registered with the state. That's my understanding. I have learned that there's a nonprofit in Peabody that is the Vernal Pool Association, that is an excellent resource locally. And I had just a very short quote that I wanted to share with you from a 1988 kind of guidelines for the public that were put together by Tufts and Mass Audubon about the importance of maintaining wildlife corridors. And I know at previous meetings, some of our neighbors have commented on the deer population, coyote population in particular, that traverse these wetlands on the way to partly to Pinevale Conservation Land. It's a nice gesture, you know, to make a 7,500 donation to that parcel, to the I think it's about 12-acre parcel at Pinevale. But if we impinge on these corridors where the animals have been able to go through, it's going to isolate them. It's going to deplete our lives as well as their lives. Let's put it that way. I also learned, which you probably know well, that March to May is the ideal time to be working to identify vernal pools. So that's something that I have started to work on. And I'm just trying to find that quote that I wanted to share with you. One second. Thought I had it on the top. I considered it important. With me. So it's basically the message of it was that the vernal pool itself is important. The wetlands themselves are important in terms of themselves, but as part of the environment that the wildlife is living within and the ecosystem that it's a part of, that's what we're here, I believe, to help protect. And so if there are rules and provisions at the town level to have certain buffers, and we say, well, okay, we don't need to follow that right here. It's probably gonna, it maybe already has been happening on Main Street, I'm not sure, but again, with all the development that's being talked about, with the need to comply with the mass zoning about, you know, low-income housing or more housing and so forth, this is just like, you know, the tip of the iceberg in our neighborhood. So I appreciate your work and your permission for us to participate. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary, for your questions and comments. Bill McCants has his hand up and he may have some answers to your concerns. And so let's see what he has to say. Bill?
Yes. Thank you for sharing those concerns. There may be a possible misunderstanding about the role of the commission. It's not that we're not concerned with the buffer zone. It's that the commission it has to follow the law. And in fact, what the state has done with the law and what Reading does with its own bylaws is it balances various interests. We happen to be looking at a larger development here. Just want to assure you, this commission deals with these issues. Commissions all over the Commonwealth deal with these issues all the time regarding private homeowners, even in terms of, well, I want to add a deck or a driveway or an addition to my home. It happens to be in the buffer zone. We cannot treat this applicant any differently. Why? Because the state legislature has balanced interests and said, here's your charge. Here are the laws you can work within. We have to be very mindful of how little of this property happens to be within our jurisdiction. It's not that we don't care very much about wildlife corridors, vernal pools, and so forth. But we have to very carefully look at the facts before us and be mindful of the constraints on our jurisdiction and what we can do. And I just want to say that sometimes town commissions forget that for perhaps the best of reasons. But that does not end well. Reading, decades ago now, I'm happy to say, actually had a case go all the way to the appeals court. And the appeals court said to the Reading Conservation Commission at that time, you apparently didn't want this property to be built, but you had no basis in either state law or your local bylaws to have stopped this project. That's a reality that we always have to hold in mind. So please know, we're not discounting your concerns. Please know that we are here on this commission because we do care about these values that you spoke of, but that in the end, we have to follow the law and the balancing of the interests in the way that the state has decided, because the state, this is important to remember, the state has the last word when it comes to state wetlands law. And even with our local bylaws, that's also a balancing of interests. So that's what I wanted to say without, again, discounting any of the very good points you raised. Thank you.
And I just want to, excuse me, point out, just because our jurisdiction goes to 100 feet from the wetland line, that does not mean that the 100 feet from the wetland line is restricted from being built on. Because if you look at projects we've been reviewing for years here in town, we set the no build zone at 35 feet from the wetland line. And this is going nowhere near the 35-foot line. So 100 feet is our jurisdiction. And so this little tiny corner of this property is within 100 feet. But if it were any other property and they were only touching that outer 10 or 20 feet of the property, it's nowhere near our 35-foot limit. So you could put a whole house between this project and our 35-foot no build zone. So, you know, we do have jurisdiction over that area, and we've asked them not to put the dumpster within the 100 feet. But, you know, we can't just say you can't do anything in that 100 feet because it's too close to the wetland, because it's well over 35 feet away. And my understanding is that the third-party reviewer checked for whether that might be a vernal pool in the back area there and found that the water would be too shallow and it would not function as a vernal pool. So I think they've already done the research and figured out that it wouldn't be one. Do you?
Anyway, I believe it said, with regard to the potential for a vernal pool, it may be possible vernal pool breeding activity to occur within the relatively shallow water column observed within the bordering vegetative wetlands. However, even if a vernal pool occurs within the bordering vegetative wetlands, no work appears to be proposed within 100 feet of it. Even if it contains a vernal, it's not else than frozen.
And 100 foot is again the limit of how close you can get to a vernal pool to do any work. So we can't protect stuff that's further away than 100 feet from a vernal pool. So what you just read to me, that it says no work is proposed within 100 feet of this area that might possibly have been a vernal pool, we don't know, but we're not building within 100 feet of that, or the builder isn't. So again, I think that's not something that we as a commission could legislate about because it's too far away. This corner of the property is too far away from the vernal pool for it to be something that we can change what their plan is based on that.
Martha, I think Andy has a question.
Andy?
I mean, one, thank you for coming out and speaking. I know that's not easy. So I greatly appreciate and I hear you. And I feel your concerns as well. think that it is open from my reading of the report that it still could be a vernal pool. They're not doing anything there, so I fully support you trying to follow through and, it seems like it may not have enough water because we want to see more like a foot of depth. To really support strong vernal pools, but it's possible. So, if that's something you're interested in, I go for it. And then we've been talking a lot about jurisdiction, because that seems to be what you first mentioned, and I want to hear what other people from the public say, but the project as it is not building on a wetland. It's quite far from it, and that is what the law regulates. It is a sizable project though. So from my point of view, we do have our local bylaws that says if it's gonna potentially have more likely than an unlikely to alter the area that we're concerned about, we can have some kind of expectation. But we can't stop the project. So my question for you is, I think what they're taking down is they're having a dramatic alteration to all the trees and to the soil and everything that's been there in the open space. What would you like to, I mean, the project's gonna
I
happen.
think it's the density really, that's what stands out to me. Density of what's coming on, and I appreciate that there are buildings there now, that there have been buildings, that's open for development, of course. But it's a lot against wetlands, against residential. I understand I believe that was the first time that a special permit was being considered under this kind of mixed zoning. So it's a new precedent that we're establishing.
I hear you again, but thank you. I want to hear what more people from the public have to say. I think they have also provided a lot of trees and compensation and the potential donation to, I'm not sure the Pineville Conservation would be of interest, but those are the types of things I'd like to hear from the public. And given that this is probably going to happen, what can they do to make your lives happier? From a conservation point of view.
Well, we all have water in our basements now. We're just fearful of where it's going to. Oh,
Yeah, that's something that we have literally put that on the CPDCs. They've done the heavy lifting on that side of things. But yeah, I agree.
Yeah, and I believe CPDC has the stormwater plan and has approved it, correct?
I don't know where they're at in their process. Maybe Carlton can update us, but I will let you know that, we also can look at the stormwater plan and all the impervious surfaces, all that water is being infiltrated. The roof, the driveway, the parking area, all that's infiltrated. It used to go over the top of the land and go out. So the argument about, unfortunately, the Wetlands Protection Act is like infiltrate. That's what we want to do. So these guys did that and they did it with their project, and that's what they're asked to do. And, I think the question would be, have somehow through taking that water supply away, have we altered the wetland? And that's a good segue into your next question, which was the vernal pools. So the vernal pools we can protect, and we can protect them 100 feet, and there may be a way to protect them even further. But there was no vernal pools found here, and there was no evidence that that was the case. So you may find some in Pineville, you may find some in this area here. But even if we protect that 100 feet, that wet area that's up Pineville Ave is more than 100 feet away. The wetland that creates that dumpster area is coming from like the Coleman building side and a wetland that's over in that area. Yeah.
That also abuts our road, and there are other development opportunities, coming in.
Yeah, absolutely. And I agree and about not understanding all these changes that happen through the town, and then all of a sudden a project comes in. That's kind of like I see what's happening instead of just trying to figure out what they mean by making the small commas in there and the change in there. And then all of a sudden, there's more development. But that's a CPDC discussion. The only other thing that I wanted to mention is that we absolutely could restrict any building within 100 feet if the conditions allow us to. So again, we have to follow the rules, our own regulations and the Wetlands Protection Act. But if you want to look to section 3D4, it does say that the zone of natural vegetation can be extended under certain conditions, depending on special site conditions. Now, obviously, that's not just normal conditions. There has to be something that's different in that area. And typically that might be a vernal pool or something else that's truly unique. But I just didn't want anyone here or anyone who's thinking of presenting a project to say that, oh yeah, 35 foot, we're good. We can always present something up into that area and it'll always pass. It's not the case, but it is typical of what ends up happening here in Redditch.
That makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah, one of the special conditions that I heard about at MACC training has to do with the steepness of the slope. If you've got a steeper slope, you might want to go further away than 35 feet because of the runoff and water conditions and things like that. Yeah, so are there any other people on Zoom who had anything they wanted to say, members of the commission or members of the public? If you are trying to get in on Zoom, you want to use the reaction button at the bottom and then the raise hand function. And anybody else in the room who has comments on this project? Okay. Chuck, did you have any more comments?
I don't. I think if there's no comments from the commission, we could ask for a motion to close and then maybe discuss conditions if we're at that. And
Just before we move to that, the $7,500 donation, what is that going towards? Is there a particular, I want to hear more about that.
so it's through the CPDC. And I think it's specific to Pinevale Conservation Area. Carlton, could you give us a little more information about that if you have any?
The only thing I have is that it is earmarked for Pineville Conservation, and they did specifically note that in the meeting that it was going to be used at that area.
I don't know what specifically.
Well,
There's
It
like
might have been the entrance I know they had spoken about. I know the entrance is a bit of disrepair.
So my hope is it's good for all conservation purposes, but again, it's a donation through this developer and he might want certain things. So there are some, so I have like plans and whatnot for the entrance but it's not as awesome as people think. I wanted to put a handicap parking spot there and I would need to have a retaining wall built. I have to expand it by about half a car. And then I could still fit the same amount of cars that can get there now and a dedicated handicap parking spot. And then obviously the trails would have to be worked on in that area also.
Right, but that may not happen since that's going through CPDC.
No, my understanding is that the Conservation Commission would have control, some part of control over that money, and projects can be discussed. So it needs to be finalized, but that was my understanding. I don't think CPDC is going to be going to conservation land and saying, we want you to do this. I think it has to either be a combined discussion or it's all conservation.
But if there's a particular project, I'd like to make sure there's that funding, but it sounds like it's not, or it's through CPDC. But
no, I think it'll be in our control.
Yeah.
so I'd like to make sure.
Guys, I'm sorry. I don't mean to interrupt. I don't know how to raise my hand on this thing. I apologize. Chuck, this is Severio, the developer. I don't know if
Sure.
I can shed a little bit light on this, but the way the decision's written, it's pretty generic. It does say that it's towards the Pinevale Trails, but if it's something that Andrew can administratively approve or modify, I'm open to however conservation best feels that they want to use the proceeds. I mean, we're generally just looking to help support your efforts, and however that plays out is completely up to you guys. You guys know better where you need the money than I do, so.
Sure. Yeah, I could talk to Andrew, and I think what I'm hearing from Andy Driven is that outside of anything that may be outside of the Pinevale Conservation Area, although there is a lot of need in the conservation area, so that might be a discussion later on. But,
Chuck, I did put the condition up on the board there, so it is written that it's at your discretion to be spent.
Okay.
Andrew, can we add it at the discretion of Andrew and you and the conservation administrator, or do you want to keep it as?
The decision is actually unfortunately already filed. It's already been stamped and all that good stuff. So we can't amend it because this is the one that's actually been voted on. But since it does say at the discretion of community development director, I believe that Andrew will have some discretion over it. And if you'd like, maybe Chuck and I offline, we can email Andrew and try to have a conversation with him about maybe what our options are and how we can best navigate the language there.
So now you know why I don't know too much about it.
Yeah. All right, fair enough.
So-
Well, thank you. I think that's a nice, I know the community may not see the value in that now, but I think that's a nice contribution. My only other question is, since it's out of our side that CPDC is handling, so thank you openly to CPDC for doing all the heavy lifting. But I took a look at the landscape plan and I appreciate that as well. But do they have the same kind of 3-year expectation that they'll look at it in 3 years to see the survivability of the plants?
So within our jurisdiction, we can certainly do that. Outside of our jurisdiction, I don't know what the CPDC's decision says.
Is that already part of the?
Sorry, can I jump back in again just to help you with the decision file? The way that the decision file is written, there is actually some specific language that pertains to the viability of plantings, and we are responsible for maintaining them and replanting and all that fun stuff. I mean, Carlton can probably speak better to that kind of stuff, but it is covered in there.
In perpetuity. That's
Yeah.
better than this.
Shall be
It's about as good as it gets.
If we put a permit, since it's out of our jurisdiction, our usual 3-year survivability of the plantings, is that something that we could even consider?
In perpetuity?
No, just the 3, that's just maintained, like, but the
Maintained
planting.
Outside of our jurisdiction, we can't do that. So, but we do have those native plants, and we don't even know if they're planting native outside of our jurisdiction, but they are all native within our
We are,
jurisdiction.
yeah, we agreed.
You are.
Sorry about that. Yeah, we did. Yeah. Once you asked for it within that buffer, we made the switch to everything native and we agreed to that. Absolutely. We're happy to do that.
Seems to me that we've already walked over into talking about conditions. So perhaps close it and then continue any conversation.
That's okay. It's fine. Glad he's able to contribute.
So before you close it, we have someone, it's just a call. It says iPhone. So if you can unmute yourself and ask your question, just state your name and address for the record.
Hi, my name is Alicia. I live at 11 Pinevale. Sorry that I'm on my iPhone. It was just the only way to kind of get connection. I just wanted to thank the commission for their hard work on this. I wanted to thank all the property owners for their contribution to the community and the discussion. I just wanted to ask one question about notice with respect to how the Pinevale conservation money will be used. I'm grateful that there's a donation there. However, a new sign already went up, and I think that was just probably by the nature of the old sign was from, I think, 77. So there's already a new sign there. So I'm not sure if the developers had paid for that new sign, and if there's going to be literally more parking put in that section. I was just wondering if notice could be given to the abutters for that, because we already have some parking issues on our street. Thanks.
Alicia, can you give us your last name also, please?
Sorry, Mrs. Moore, Willis.
Thank you. Chuck, do you want to answer her question
Yeah, is Alicia?
about Alicia Willis, about the sign that just went up?
Sure. So Alicia, the Conservation Commission paid for that sign.
Oh, thank you.
Not in control of the $7,500, so I don't know what that will be used on. And as far as giving notice, I guess that's how, it's not typical for the Conservation Commission to manage their property that way. But
Okay.
in this case, you know, being, you know, part of, you know, this high level discussion and this permit, I guess if we were going to actually put in a additional handicap parking spot with the parking spots that are remaining there to stay and not to increase, I think that we would, you know, it's really up to the chair, but I'm thinking that Chair Moore would say, yes, alert the neighborhood.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just, there's a
especially if
driveway,
construction
right?
on.
Sorry, Ms. Moore, go ahead.
I was just thinking if there's going to be construction going on to build the retaining wall, it would be good to let the abutters know that that's going to be happening.
Yeah, I don't know if I would call it construction, but it is an increase. I mean, it's not, I think there's probably you know, 6-inch to 18-inch area that needs to be filled for about 4 feet, and then some landscape timber kind of holding it in place.
Okay.
But if that's, yeah, we will. When we get to that point, we will, you know, notify people.
Okay,
But,
thank you.
Access to trails is important.
Oh, 100%. And I think that it's a great idea about the handicap spot. And to be honest, I'm embarrassed that I had never really thought of it. It's such flat land there and hadn't really crossed my mind that it would make sense to have a designated spot for a handicapped person. So I think that that's an excellent idea. There's just a double driveway right to the left of that. And then there's a utility pole like to the right of it. I'm just being cautious about sort of the area.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Alicia.
Out there. Okay, so let me see. No one else?
Okay, in that case, this is Brian, I make a motion to close the hearing on 252 to 262 Main Street.
So Brian made a motion to close. Do we have a second?
Tony, I second that motion.
Okay, seconded by Tony. Walter, can you start the voting?
Walter Talbot's in favor of the motion.
This is Bill McCanson. I'm stating per the Mullen rule that I did review the entire video of the previous meeting so that I can vote on this motion, and I also vote in favor.
So Tony Rodalakis, I vote in favor. Andrew Gibbon in favor.
Brian Bowe in favor?
Martha Moore in favor. That's 6-0 in favor. The hearing is now closed. What conditions did we want to make sure were included?
So that, you know, you have an option now if you want to just talk about the conditions, or would you want to just close and then continue to the next meeting and then write them at that point? And then come up with some conditions in between the two meetings. So 2 options, either have your conditions now, you think you have them all. I think what I would do is ask Andrew Gibbon, made you director, Andrew McNichol, what's happening with the money, because that might be part of some conditions. And so if I had that opportunity to have that conversation with them, I could let you know, and you could come up with some conditions about, you know, where the money might be spent or something. That's the only thing I could think of to kind of delay where we're at.
I'm in favor of you talking to Andrew to try to
make options.
Yeah, so
we would need to get Carlton's agreement to a.
No, we don't.
Because we've already closed.
Sorry.
No.
Good point.
All right, and I know some of the conditions we've already talked about, like the wildlife friendly lighting and stuff like that. So have you got those conditions already down? And so really the only condition we're thinking about is how is the $7,500 spent?
I have them down, but it would be best to just say them all out. And I know that CBDC also, not only did they add it to their decision, they thought that was a great little add to, and I think you will see a lot more of that from them in the future. So, no, I would say if we're going to continue this in the next meeting, just come up with your conditions at that point. Make sure we have them all instead of thinking that I have some.
Okay, so we'll continue to the next meeting in order to get our conditions right at the next meeting.
Do we have to vote on continuing?
Chuck, since we don't need to vote because we've already closed.
Yeah.
So we'll just write the order of.
But you might want to make sure that everyone agrees. I mean.
That's why I'm looking around and getting nods.
Yeah.
So everybody on the commission, make sure you've got your condition list with you when we come to our next meeting, and we'll try and make that quick and efficient to get those in the books. Right? Okay. So.
Just before, one more thing, if you don't mind, sorry. Do you mind reviewing the conditions of the CPDC also? Because a lot of your conditions are going to be in there also, and just make sure they don't conflict with each other.
Good idea.
Thank you.
Chuck, is that something you can send out to us?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Right. I think Jack's on.
Thank you.
Jack. on
Jack is-
Cell phone.
Jack Sullivan is
Seems
right
like,
here in person.
Hey,
For humor.
did you? I saw that. You keep calling in.
Oh, was that your phone that kept ringing?
I called the state police on you, but I guess you got away with it.
Yeah, somebody was giving a presentation about Millet Psalms Morgan, and up in the corner, this phone kept showing up.
I had a weak signal, kept trying it, and I'm like, I'm just gonna drive.
Okay,
Thank you.
well, thank you for coming. Are you 71 Lila Lane?
I am.
Okay, I will read about it. 71 Lila Lane, continue the public hearing on a notice of intent filed by Paris and Pamela Daskalakis pursuant to Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Wetlands Protection Act and/or the Reading Wetland Protection Bylaw, Section 7.1. The applicant is proposing construction of a 11-foot by 30-foot addition and a 6 by 10-foot portico, small patio expansion, and new front walkway within the 100-foot buffer zone to a bordering vegetated wetland. The application and plans can be viewed during regular business hours at the Town Hall Conservation Office, 16 Lowell Street, Reading, Mass. 01867, and on the Conservation Division page under the project by year, Assessors Map 55, Lot 18, DEP file number 270-0783. Welcome, Jack.
Thank you. Thank you, commission members. For the record, Jack Sullivan, owner of the Sullivan Engineering Group. When I last met with you, there were a few items the commission wanted me to look at, a few changes to the plan. I'll go through a summary of the changes I made. If you remember, there was a fire pit that was located within the 25-foot upper zone behind the rear of the house that actually encroached onto the abutting property. That's going to be removed entirely. The owner did not want to relocate it. They don't use it that often. They're just going to remove it. As I talked about the last meeting, I wanted to show a proposed material stockpile area, which I would say be to the right of the driveway. So I've graphically depicted that on the plan. The commission felt there was the ability to generate some plantings within the 25-foot buffer just off of the proposed addition area. So I did show 3 different species of plantings to be planted within the 25-foot zone. Chuck, can you pan down? I can't remember what I planted. Okay, so I'm showing 3 dogwoods, 3 arrowwood viburnum, and 3 spice bush to be planted within the 25-foot buffer zone. To the rear of the existing house, there was a roof drain that goes into the ground. I could see the pipe. I couldn't find an outlet to the pipe. The homeowner had no knowledge if there was some sort of dry well or some sort of drainage structure for this, but I walked out into the woods. I couldn't see any sort of outlet from it. It does look to me that they'd be able to build the patio with that pipe in place. They can be careful and construct the pipe. So I don't see an impact to that pipe, but I don't have any additional information where that pipe goes or what's going on with it. I did talk to the homeowners, those lawnmowers and some of the yard waste that's on the abutting property with this. The ninja training area, the ropes that we talked about, they're removing that altogether. The kids have outgrown that, so that'll be removed. And I did talk to the owner about the invasive species management. That one member had said there might be an opportunity to do something like that. Based on the other mitigation with the drip trench, the plantings, and everything else, it really wasn't something that they wanted to get into with the invasive species removal. That highlights the changes we did, as Chuck said. I think we received a DEP file number. We didn't have that at the last meeting, so I'll open it up to any questions and see if we can close this out.
Okay, anybody on the commission with questions for Jack?
Thank you for all the updates and these are make the project much easier. My only thought, I didn't notice, so the proposed patio is like right on the 35-foot.
Right on it.
Yes. And then we're gonna have lawn that's gonna be seated just to adjacent to that.
Between the 35 and the 25, and then we'll have the new plantings.
Yeah, well, I appreciate the new plantings. I do think that's a nice change.
Yeah, and that's why we checked carefully the 3A and 4A flags when we were there. Because if those flags were not accurate, then the 35-foot line wouldn't be accurate. But we felt like they had mapped them appropriately.
Yeah. Okay. I don't have any suggested changes, but it always makes me uncomfortable when we get that close to the 35. But you've got some nice changes to address that.
And is that patio pervious, impervious? What's the story on that?
It's gonna be pavers.
Means in between the pavers, water can get through, or is it gonna be stone dust solid?
No, there'll be gaps so water can get through. I didn't designate it as a pervious patio paver. If that's something the commission thinks we should do, we could. The existing patio is not, so they're just gonna be paver stones. It's really, you know, it's how you build the base material.
Mm-hmm. Right.
You let water go through. I didn't call it out that way on this.
So you're expecting the water will sheet off to the edge rather than soaking in?
I think so.
Okay. Does that concern people, or are we okay with that?
I'm a big fan of pervious patios, to be honest, but I think in this situation, I would not.
So you think pervious would be the way to
Because
go?
we're right on the edge there, so it's not, so it's taking some of that water flow in the patio itself.
Is that something you?
Typically with a patio, like this extension, it's about 5 feet wide by 11 feet long. So it's really, we're just a little over 50 square feet of additional patio. If it was a larger patio, I'd say, let's do something pervious. Where it's an extension of an existing patio and it's only about 50 square feet, I feel it's pretty small.
I agree, that's why I'm in favor of being pervious.
Oh, then I agree with you.
Because yeah, it gets really expensive when you do a really big area of pervious pavers, but since we're dealing with a small area, I don't think the expense would be traumatic. And I do think preventing that runoff on the edge, it's just gonna get soggy And you're gonna have, not most, pleasant lawn right there, but if we could get some of that moisture, even though it's small.
Yeah.
I think it'll create a slightly better buffer, for the patio. But that's just mine.
I don't have a problem. If we want to designate it as to be pervious, we can have it constructed that way.
And it doesn't look from your plan like you're changing the grading of the hill on the side where the crushed stone drip trench is.
No.
The hill's just gonna be the same slope.
Correct.
Right. And, is it likely to be all dug up during construction and have to be all reseeded on that slope?
My guess is yes.
Okay. And so we'll want to be really careful with the erosion control and making sure the erosion control is well maintained during the project, because it's so steep and so close to the
I was gonna
edge.
say that that's steep, so what ideas do you have for stabilizing it until something grows in?
Yeah. I just, if there's gonna be work equipment out there, even when they're framing this and they're setting up, ladders and everything else, there'll be they're gonna have to reloam and reseed it, but it is a steep slope, so we'll be mindful of the erosion barrier.
But it's not just the barrier which catches things at the bottom, it's preventing it in the first place as much as you can from silting down, right?
If you need some type of a matting,
Something,
matting.
yeah, I wasn't going to design it, but something.
Yeah.
Okay, and, Walter Talbot has his hand up?
Yeah,
Or
as-
is it Bill?
going back to the patio extension. As a happy homeowner, I'm worried about the aesthetics. However, as a commissioner, I'm worried about the drainage, because isn't that the exact same place where we don't know where the drain pipe drainage is going? So if there's some way to match up the pattern, the color, whatever, that'd be great. But I think drainage.
Oh, yeah, there you go. We lost your point. You need to say that again, Walter.
Oh, well, I think the first step would be, again, aesthetics. Does the extension look like the existing patio? Obviously, it's newer. It won't look exactly like it. But considering the fact that that was where we had a drain pipe going to an unknown destination, I'd be worried about the drainage. So maybe it should be the permeable pavers.
Okay, so you're voting permeable for that one?
Yes.
Okay, and does Bill McCants have his hand up, or was it just Walter?
It's Walter.
Okay, all right, anybody else on the commission with comments or concerns? Before we move on? Okay, I would have liked to see them deal with the buckthorn, but I am very glad to have the plantings in the 25-foot zone and the fire pit out of the 45-foot zone, and the ninja ropes taken off the tree. So I appreciate all those changes. Thank you.
Yep.
Anybody else? Any members of the public, online or in person? If you're online, you go to the reactions function at the bottom of your screen and use the raise hand feature. And anybody in the room with any questions or comments? Okay. Nobody online?
Nope.
Okay, can I have a motion? Chuck, did you have anything to say?
I don't.
Okay. So what are we gonna do about this? It's a notice of intent, so we would need a motion to close. Anybody?
Brian, make a motion to close the hearing on 71 Lila.
This is Tony. I will second that motion to close.
Walter Talbot's in favor.
Bill McCants in favor.
Tony Rotalakis in favor. Andrew Driven in favor.
Brian Rowe in favor.
Martha Moore in favor. So Brian moved to close, Tony seconded, 6-0 in favor. All right, do we have some conditions we want to list?
I have one, and I'm not sure how to phrase it. So you said that the lawnmowers and the yard waste are on the next property. I looked it up, it's 77. So assuming we did something with that property, if in fact it turned out there was much of it that's actually on this property, I would want a condition that if that were discovered, that would be cleaned up by this property owner.
That's fair.
Okay, so the assumption is that they're accurate and it's next door.
Yep.
But in case it's not real clear where the line is, I'd just like to have that on the record.
Yeah, it's good to have it. That's a fair statement.
Thanks.
And maybe this homeowner could ask their neighbors to do something with those lawnmowers?
That's what I'm gonna ask, to try to get it done without having to involve Chuck in an enforcement order.
Yeah.
He loves
That
writing
would be
letters.
lovely. And I don't know if you guys are gonna have a construction dumpster on site and whether lawnmowers are allowed to go in construction dumpsters, but you know, if that's the problem, that they don't know what to do with those lawnmowers, perhaps there's an opportunity there.
Okay.
Thank you. All right, anything else? We assume that the things we've already mentioned are in the conditions. Yes,
You mentioned the buckthorn. What,
the homeowner has declined to try to deal with the buckthorn.
I missed that.
Yeah. Yeah, that was more than they were willing to take on.
So they're planting fair amount. So we need to explicitly say how long we want it to survive.
Good point.
Yeah, so so I have, this is the toughest one. And I'll wordsmith this in the order. If the trash belongs to the property owner, something to that effect.
Yeah, something to that effect.
Okay, the plants installed as per plan, and I would recommend, you can tell me there's no trees. 80% shrubs survival after 3 years. There's not that many. You could say 100.
Yeah.
And 100% for any trees.
I think the dogwoods are trees, so there are some trees there.
Do you want 80% for the shrubs after 3 years or 100%?
What's,
Seeing our last one, which is in perpetuity.
Yeah.
That was maintenance. Was not survivability.
I don't know how to do the math, but
Dead tree.
5 out of 6 trees would be approximate, 5 out of 6 shrubs would be approximately 80%. I'm willing to see that 5 out of 6 shrubs survive. That works for me. And 3.
Ninja line removed.
Walter wants, how many? Walter's up there.
3.
3 trees.
83%.
That just,
Okay, he's doing the math for me quickly. So close enough to
I always think
80%,
they're clean.
Walter?
He's muted.
He's muted, so we can't hear what he's telling us.
I hate to sound like a nerd.
Late.
Say 80%.
Okay, so are 5 out of 6 approximately 80%?
Yes.
Yeah, it's 83.
83 for,
That's what Walter was
Signing it.
that's what,
I know it's 83.
That's great
Okay.
math.
So 80 is close enough.
okay.
okay, so a third of one of the bushes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, and
Oh,
just-
permeable.
permeable,
What are we doing on that? Is that a condition?
Walt and I agree with it. I guess
Yeah.
that's in the other.
Sure.
Permeable, those pavers are permeable.
yeah, that works for me.
That works for me.
Great. And then I would like to have a condition of stabilizing the slope if there are heavy rains forecast. So,
Yeah.
you know, yeah,
Well, stabilizing the slope anyway, in particular if there's gonna be heavy rain.
Right,
But
yeah.
that's a pretty steep slope.
right. So I'm thinking, you know, if there's a nor'easter predicted, bring in some big tarps or something to not have all your soil ended up in the swamp on top of the lawnmowers.
Some towns will put in if there's a 1-inch rain of forecasted event or greater,
Mhm.
that they should put some extra stabilization in.
Well, I trust you. I know you. You've worked with us a lot. I think you'll know when all your soil's gonna end up in the swamp and you'll do something about it
Yeah.
ahead of time.
I'm just looking at we have the proposed stockpile to the right of the driveway, and we're worried about slope on the left side of the addition.
Mhm. The stockpile is materials, not
But are they
soil.
gonna wanna go around, there's a hill there too, so they're gonna be going around the front of the house
Correct.
side on that sloped area that we're concerned about.
Right. That's how I show the access route to go on the front yard.
And Jack's right. That's why he said it's going to get chewed up. It's going to get chewed up.
Right, but you're only chewing up that side. You're
Just
not
that
chewing up the side.
Right, it's the shortest distance.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Well, can we have a condition of fence off or something so that they don't, because they're gonna be damn tempted to go down that hill and just go cut behind the house on the right side. I know I would be.
No access on the right side of the house,
I
solid
would-
construction fence?
I don't know if they need a fence, maybe after you review that on the site, but definitely have it say no access from the right side of the house.
Okay, and,
Go ahead.
and do we need a timeline for when they clean up the fire pit and reseed that? Just by the end of the project?
It's a notice of intent. You can watch that when you get your certificate of compliance request.
Okay. All right,
I was gonna, again, talk about one that may be hard to phrase, but we've talked about the downspout and not knowing where it goes. You said that you believe that they can be careful and not damage it. Is it worth having an explicit condition to make sure that they focus on that and they take extra care not to damage it? Reason being, we don't know where it goes. And if it gets cracked, broken, something like that, you're gonna have water coming out somewhere underneath without knowing what the down pipe effect is. So it seems like drawing attention to it by having an explicit condition might be useful. I don't know if I'm overthinking that. Feel free to call me names.
I think we've had a lot of discussion on it, so to put it in the order is fine. And I'll point it out to the contractor as well, but then it's, at least it's in writing.
Yeah, and maybe that makes it better. I don't know. But okay.
that works. Then if the contractor does break it, they've been warned.
They've been warned.
They own it.
So protect pipe under new pervious paver patio. Okay.
Okay,
Quite a few conditions.
Okay.
anything else?
Yeah, and Brian, did you want to specify a more aggressive erosion control on the slope? Do you want to specify matting or some type of matting?
Martha talked about having some stabilization mechanism, and it's up to them to have one that is appropriate, is enough. Again, it's a steep slope. They are gonna chew it up. It has been rainy, so I think you have that in there, right? Some stabilization for the slope.
I wrote down what Jack said, stabilize the slope, you know, the 1 inch rain event or greater.
Okay,
Okay.
you good with that? All right.
All righty.
Okay, so we have closed, we've discussed conditions, we have one thing left.
So this is Brian. I'll make a motion to issue a negative determination.
No, it's a notice of intent.
I'm sorry, one of the things, 98. So to issue for, so it's 71 Lila.
This is Andy, I'll second.
Walter Talbot's in favor of the motion.
Bill McCants in favor.
Tony Rodalakis in favor.
Andrew Driven in favor.
Brian Bowe in favor.
Martha Moore in favor. Moved by Brian Bowe, seconded by Andrew Driven, and 6-0 in favor. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very
Do you
much.
have any other hearings tonight?
I do.
Okay, we'll
Yeah.
see you in a few minutes. Okay, 44 Chiquesset is the next one. And is Jesse Birnbaum here?
Aiden,
Hi, I'm here. Aiden Schlotman. I'm with Stamsky and McNary. I'm the representative for Jesse Birnbaum.
Okay,
so hold on 1 second. Let me read the blurb.
yep, I'll read the blurb. Thank you for coming, Aiden. Continue the public hearing on a notice of intent filed by Jesse Birnbaum pursuant to Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Wetlands Protection Act, and/or the Reading Wetland Protection Bylaw, Section 7.1. The applicant is proposing construction of a pool and fence within the 100-foot buffer zone to a bordering vegetated wetland. The application and plans can be viewed during regular business hours at the Town Hall Conservation Office, 16 Lowell Street, Reading, Mass., and on the Conservation Division page under the project by year, Assessor's Map 28, Lot 131, DEP file number 270-0782. All right, thank you, Aidan.
All right, I will share my screen here and I will show everyone the changes we have made since last meeting. Just to recap, this project is for the proposed pool, rather small pool that's going to be off the existing patio there and lawn area with minor regrading needed, and then a fence to encapsulate the backyard there. At the previous meeting, there was just a couple comments that were addressed. First of all, there was concern that there was a native tree within the wetland back there that you guys wanted removed. So we're now proposing to remove that native tree, or sorry, invasive tree.
Thank you.
Secondly, with the construction entrance being on the left side, we did add construction entrance, which ensures that no track out will happen during construction that'll enter the road or anything like that. And then additionally, with it being on the left side there, since we are keeping these two trees here, we're proposing a construction mat to help protect those roots that are buried there and to protect those trees and make sure those aren't injured at all. And then lastly, sorry, not really lastly, but there was concern that there was some cinder blocks and plastic bricks that were inside the 25-foot. So we did add note number 2 that said, states all inorganic material within the 25-foot natural vegetation zone is to be removed prior to any planting that occurs. And then lastly, there is concern about winterization of the pool. We have added a pool drain basin, which is essentially kind of a crushed stone pit that if any water does need to get pumped from the pool, it'll get drained directly into this crushed pit, which will allow it to filter a little bit and then really go right into the ground rather than running off and getting towards the wetland at all. Those were the main issues at the last meeting and the main changes for this new project here, and I'm happy to hear if there's any comments from you.
I believe that invasive tree was the one that Brian and I identified as a buckthorn. European buckthorn. If there's any question which tree it is, please ask Chuck or one of us to come mark it so that there's
An
no
additional identifier was it actually had a blue wetland flag on one of the branches.
Okay.
Should help.
Right, but nonetheless, if there's any question of what tree we're asking to be removed, please have one of us come point it out so that we're not removing a native tree and leaving an invasive by mistake.
Sure, absolutely.
Great, thank you. All right, anybody else have any other questions or things that we wanted that you haven't seen?
I do have a question about the winterization process, and if you could specify a little more information on dechlorinization.
So these pools are pretty small. So I personally, I'm not 100% sure, but I think I don't own a pool myself, so I'm not 100% sure, but I believe they just dechlorinize it and then I believe it sits in the pool, but we want to make sure that if anything does need to get pumped, it will get pumped right into that drain basin there to make sure that it's not just running off. It's filtering with the crushed stone that's in that pit and then going into the ground.
I don't know that the crushed stone would trap the chlorine. I don't know a lot about pools.
In my experience, by the time you are ready to close your pool in the winter, if you want to draw the water down at all, the chlorine is pretty much gone. You know, the chlorine doesn't stay in the pool for very long. You have to keep adding more chlorine all summer. So I'm not all that worried. You know, it's not like you're taking freshly chlorinated pool water and dumping it out on the ground. You're taking water you haven't swum in and you haven't been chlorinating, and you're dumping that water out. Does that make sense?
Well, there's guidance from DEP, and I'm trying to look for it right now, but I know that you're not supposed to add chlorine 3 days prior to draining it. So that's one of,
right.
And you may, you know, pool owners may just not do that after it gets too cold and they don't feel like draining it down.
Yeah.
Some of these cartridge systems, they don't need to be drained down. I mean, it's not really in the saltwater systems, don't need that either.
You could also test the chlorine level in your pool, and if it's testing above 0, don't drain it until the chlorine level drops. Would you want to have them just test before they draw off any water?
Well, it appears, yeah, Chuck, you said you found DEP guidance. I found some DCR guidance. They have certain recommendations. Make sure that pH levels are between 6.5 and 8.5 is a natural range. You don't want to discharge water that has a lot of algae or black film. Collect it, put it down the toilet. These are some of the management practices that DCR recommends.
We're happy to do whatever you guys are more comfortable with.
Kind of reading this on the fly here.
Maybe we could just follow appropriate guidelines for removing the water, and we don't have to tell them all the exact details of what they need to do.
Well, we did ask for a winterization
Plan? Okay.
So I was.
didn't remember
I was-
we asked for
I was
one.
expecting something a little more than just a revision to a drawing. I thought there would be something a little more substantial.
Well, it's not just a revision to a drawing, it's actually putting in that stone drain pit. Right, so he's,
That'll help with the water infiltration, but it doesn't necessarily address the chemicals that are in that water. And chlorine is designed to kill things.
Mhm.
And I don't know if we want to start introducing that into the groundwater or shallow.
Okay. So in that case, why don't we specify that they should follow the DCR guidelines or the DEP guidelines for pool winterization? And then we don't have to micromanage it for them. Would you be happy with that?
Yeah, as long as there's a written protocol that we can reference.
Okay.
So why don't we put the onus on the applicant to find those guidelines and incorporate them into,
Operation and maintenance plan?
yeah, and then send it to me, and then you may close tonight, you may issue tonight, but then when I receive that, I can actually send them the permit.
Does that work for you?
That's fine.
All right. And we've seen guidelines, you said was Department of Conservation and Recreation?
Yes.
It has guidelines, so that's Aiden, is
That
that
and
a good place to start?
DEP has some too, so if you're gonna probably find more than you need, but
Sure, the pool contractor has some knowledge about that.
yeah, same.
So Aiden, does that make sense to you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so either DEP or DCR would be a place to get those guidelines. You'll submit them to Chuck as an operation and maintenance plan for the homeowners.
Sure.
Okay, all right, we've covered that. What else do we need to cover? Andy?
So behind the fence, we have some plantings further closer to the wetlands, but what is the plan, for the use of that land that's noted as the 25-foot natural zone? What do you expect is gonna happen to that land there?
Well, I think now that the fence is there, I don't think there's really a need to quite go back there, and it's gonna make mowing obviously very difficult. I think it's lawn now, but now that there's a fence there, I'd assume that it's either going to remain as existing conditions or it's just gonna stop being mowed because there's a fence in the way and it's just gonna be too difficult to mow that. So, either or.
I would like to see it as a no-mow zone. I'm surprised. It's come up.
We were extending the vegetation further from the wetland line. We don't always ask for the full 25 feet.
I would
That's
ask
why it
for the
didn't come up
plantings
last time.
further, but we
Yeah.
should, it has been mowed, but that is a zone we would like to see not mowed. I
I'm
would like to see
concerned
it
if it's a no-mow zone that will become all buckthorn. So it might be something where they might want to go in with a weed whacker once a year so that they're not letting it be taken over by invasives. I would be very concerned that if you just say no mow and it just gets left to its own devices, it will be a lovely patch of invasives.
I hear you, but I don't wanna have them do more plantings.
Right.
I don't wanna design it. Are we happy with it as it is planned, as it is drawn?
Then that can be a condition if we wanted that we'd whack it once a year. It doesn't affect the closing approval, it's just maybe a condition.
Yeah. I would like to see the condition, if you want a no-mow zone, I'd like the condition to include, keep an eye on and, beat back the invasives if they start to come in.
My higher, I want that to become a true natural zone. Whether that means no mow zone, replanting. I don't really have a preference, but
Aiden, is there gonna be a gate in the fence down towards the back?
I don't believe so, but there may be.
If there's not a gate, how would anybody get out there to do mowing, weed whacking or anything?
Yeah, they'd have to go kind of around the side here, but there's obviously the tree line. So getting a lawnmower in there might be more difficult than it's worth.
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah. So it might make sense to have a gate, even though when you put a gate, then it's really tempting to put all your lawn clippings back there. So, you know, I'm not encouraging dumping your yard waste back there now that you've got a fence, but I think in order to be able to get back there and do some maintenance as needed, it makes sense to have a fence gate.
Weed whacking, they can walk
Yeah,
around. Okay, we probably beat that one enough.
right. Maybe you can talk to Jesse and come up with an answer that works for him.
Sure. I think probably just not mowing it is probably the easiest option. And obviously, if you want it weed whacked once a year, I think it's not unreasonable. We'd be happy to do that.
Chuck, do you have a thought on this question?
No. It sounds like they're just weren't going to bother with that property back there. Did have some concerns about what they were planting, how they would access those and ensure that they were going to survive. I mean, Aiden, sometimes you have to make sure that the grasses and whatnot just don't get entangled with the base of the new plants because it sometimes strangles them out. But outside of that, yeah, if they didn't mow back there, that would be great.
Okay, so we're ready to close? Does Brian make a motion to close the hearing on 44 Chaquasset?
Do we have a second?
This is Tony. I will second that motion to close.
Walter and Talbot is in favor of the motion.
Bill McCance in favor.
Tony Rodalakis in favor.
Andrew Driven, yes, in favor.
Brian Bowe in favor.
Martha Moore in favor, 6-0-0. Okay, we're giving Chuck a lot of work.
Well, think of that.
It's only two so far. So we have, you know, you're gonna make up an operation maintenance guide based on the DCR pool, swimming pool and surface water quality. On that document, I think that's what I was referring to, but I called it DEP. So that's easy to find. And then your list of additions, the invasive tree will remove, the material in the zone of natural vegetation, pool during basin, all those will be incorporated into the order of conditions.
Including the construction mat for protecting the trees.
Yeah.
Okay. And the gravel construction entrance at the left.
It's on the plan, yeah.
Okay. All right,
Ready for a motion?
I think we're ready for a motion.
This is Brian. I make a motion to issue for 44 Chaquasset.
This is Tony. I will second that.
Walter Talbot's in favor.
Bill McCance in favor.
Tony Rodalakis in favor.
Andrew Driven, in favor.
Brian Bowe in favor.
Martha Moore in favor. 6-0-0 in favor of issuing, moved by Brian, seconded by Tony. Okay, thank you, Jesse.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah.
No, that was Aiden. Thank you, Aiden.
Yeah.
Okay. I keep messing up the names. Okay. All right, we are now moving on to 0 Forest Street. And is that what you guys are here for?
Yeah.
Okay. Jack, you're the person on this one?
Yep.
All right, let me get started reading here. Open the public hearing on a notice of intent filed by Thomas Walsh, Trinity Home Builders LLC pursuant to Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, Wetlands Protection Act and/or the Reading Wetland Protection Bylaw, Section 7.1. The applicant is proposing construction of a new single-family home, paved driveway, hardscape landscaping, deck and site grading within the 100-foot buffer zone to a bordering vegetated wetland. The application and plans can be viewed during regular business hours at the Town Hall Conservation Office, 16 Lowell Street, Reading, Mass. And on the Conservation Division page under the project by year, Assessors Map 33, Lot 92. Do we have a DEP file number?
I looked this afternoon. I didn't.
No DEP file number yet. Okay. Jack, do you want to present the project to us, please?
Sure. For the record, Jack Sullivan, owner of the Sullivan Engineering Group, and I'm here with the buyer of the property, Tom Walsh.
Tom Walsh, okay.
So this property, it was part of the YMCA property. They subdivided off this lot that we're looking to construct a single family house on. The lot's entirely wooded. Back when the YMCA looked to subdivide the lot, they had the wetlands flag. Norse Environmental did the wetland delineation. So we have some offsite bordering vegetated wetlands. The 100-foot buffer extends onto this property. There's also an offsite certified vernal pool. The 100-foot buffer zone from the vernal pool does not encroach onto this property. I did do a detailed site survey for the property. I located all the trees 6 inches or greater within the 100-foot BVW buffer zone. And what the applicant's looking to do is construct a single family home. There'd be a paved driveway. In the area where the paved driveway is going to go, since it's an undeveloped property, we're showing a temporary crushed stone construction entrance. And we're also looking, there's a catch basin out in front of Forest Street. We're looking to put a silt sack in that catch basin for protection. We do show a proposed soil stockpile area out to the front of the site as well. We're removing 8 trees within the 100-foot buffer zone, and we're looking to replant 8 new trees, 2.5 to 3 inch caliber trees. They'll be native trees. At the limit of work line, there'll be a 12-inch diameter mulch sock placed. And we're looking to capture the entire roof area of the proposed structure and put it into a dry well to the rear of the site.
Is that where it says RD on the
Yes.
lines? Those are roof drain going to that dry well?
Correct.
Okay.
So there's roof drains in the front, there's roof drains in the back, and they're going to that dry well. You can see the limit of work line. So as we're looking at this plan on the left side of the property, there's a good slope there that we're looking to protect most of that slope. And this site has some varying topography. What we try to do is the proposed house will have a walkout basement. So we're trying to limit the amount of fill we have to bring into the rear of the house. It's going to have a garage under. So that works with the site grades for this as well.
So the driveway will slope downwards.
But everything slopes down. So the only thing that's draining out towards Forest Street, I do show some grading from like the front door of the house that would move out, but the driveway slopes away from Forest Street. Everything will go back. Same with the backyard, everything will go back. We are showing a proposed landscape wall right at the rear property line that will give them somewhat a level backyard. Also, that wall's, it's entirely, well, it is within the 35-foot no structure zone, but it's outside the 25-foot no structure zone. So I thought that wall, not only is it a landscape feature, but it's a good visual barrier to protect the 25-foot BVW as well. As we stated, I did look right before the meeting. DEP has not issued a file for this yet. So I think at this time, I'll turn it over to the commission and any questions you might have. I'm not sure if you've been able to do a site walk or not.
Most of us have. Does anybody who was out on the site want to talk? It looks like Walter has his hand raised. So can we start with Walter?
Yeah, hi, Jack. As usual, good presentation. Couple questions. It was a little bit confusing during the site walk because the notation that we have for the wetland lines are numbered differently from what we see on this diagram. And then the other question I had was the dashed line here showing the retaining wall. You have the line continuing both left and right. Is that where those concrete markers were at the extremes of the line? Because it looks like there was new concrete markers put in the ground.
Oh, but when the previous surveyor for the YMCA, they put in those concrete bounds. The idea is I should have said this too, to the rear of this lot, when the YMCA subdivided this, they put in a conservation area, an easement. And as part of that, it turns out that the rear of this lot where those bounds are, that's also, the limit of this lot is also the limit of the conservation easement to the rear. So that was bounded as part of that creation of that easement.
I was having seen those concrete markers, I wasn't sure if I drew a line between them, does that align with your dotted line showing the retaining wall?
Yes.
Okay. And then the retaining wall doesn't encompass the entire, shall we say, channel. I'm worried about drainage after construction, not during construction.
Right, so I tried to show some proposed grading, so I showed the top of that wall at elevation 109 at the rear of the property. The garage floors at elevation 110 and the walkout basements at 110, so from the garage to that retaining wall, there's 26 feet. So there'll be a 1-foot pitch to the rear of the lot over 26 feet, which is like a 4% slope. It's not that steep. And it'll all be grass, so. And any of the roof runoff, as we talked about, will be collected and brought to that dry well. So we're really limiting the amount of runoff that will be coming off that rear yard.
And Walter, you keep talking about the dashed line as being the retaining wall, but that's actually, I believe, the
mulch sock.
Mulch sock, and the bunch of ovals is the retaining wall.
Yeah, the retaining wall is the ovals beneath the dash line. Yes, I got it.
Good, okay.
And then, obviously, we're there during the wet season after a lot of rain, but it seems as if, if you could, there we go. It seems as though if we look at marker 61 there, I have to believe that it's like a spring that originates perhaps when the water table is higher in the spring, what have you, because we saw flow from there on down to the vernal pool. And I'm just concerned, again, that if we don't trap drainage above all this, it's going to go down further to the vernal pool. This is just a perfect funnel or channel, I should say, for water to run. And
Walter, I'm a little concerned, just the opposite, that if they build this, will they be disrupting the flow to that spring and reducing the water flow into the vernal pool?
Interesting. Okay.
Should we take a step back? We never really described our site visit.
That's true. We haven't got there yet. Yeah. All right. So Walter, did you have any other comments you got from the site visit before we get into the details of the construction?
Well, as long as we can replace in theory a lot of the trees that are being removed, I'm happy.
Okay. Andrew, do you want to talk about what you saw at the site visit?
Yeah, I mean, like Jack said, walking along or traveling along Forest Street, it's an existing wooded area. There's a large drop from the street that goes down to this wetland area that is delineated with some flags, which seems like it's pretty far from Forest Street from the delineation, but there's the large topography all seems like it's part of the same thing. And then once you get to the delineation, there is standing water there that has some movement that seems to be moving down flow. We also noted that there's an older map that showed there was a vernal pool closer to Forest Street. And looking at, you can definitely see you're walking downhill and the lands may have supported that at one point in time where the map was inaccurate, but there was no standing water that would suggest there's a vernal pool anywhere closer to what is suggested on the map. But we did walk down close to the middle school. There's a stream at that point where the vernal pool is. And the biggest thing we noted is the flag numbers were not aligning with what we saw on the map, which made it a little challenging, but they did seem to align like where they are supposed to be, just the numbers aren't the same. So that's kind of an administrative thing, but yeah, heavily wooded, definitely a downflow of the landscape, and yeah.
Anybody else comments from your site visits?
I have questions, I don't have comments from the site visit.
Okay. I agree that I found it very frustrating that the flags on your plot plan do not match the flags out in real life, including, it looked to me like 60, 61, 62, there were 3 flags around the top of that wetland. And it looked to me like they were 15A, 14A, 13A, and 12A. So there were actually 4 flags where you've only marked 3. So I
Yeah,
found that frustrating.
Sorry about that. I was given a plan from the YMCA. And I located the flags closest to me, but then I took the other ones from that other plan and I made a note that I took it from the other plan. And I took their numbers off of that plan. So that's my bad. I should have checked it.
Is that the NF? Is your note that those were YMCA?
Yeah.
Yeah, but the numbers on the little blue tags with the aluminum are completely different from these. But I also couldn't really match up the trees that you had marked on your plan with the actual trees out in the wooded area. And there was one homeowner we asked to go out and actually tag the trees with numbers and then put those numbers on their plan because they just were so hard to match up. And, you know, like you've got a pair of trees side by side up near where it says lot area 16,798 square feet. I couldn't find a pair of 12-inch diameter trees side by side in that location.
Okay.
So I would love some help really understanding where these trees are that we're taking down in order to build this.
What I could do, Martha, is I could flag all the trees to come down.
And somehow match those flags to this plot plan, you know?
Yep, I could.
That would help.
Yep.
Okay. Do you want me to keep going or do you want to take a turn?
You can rest your voice.
Okay. Brian.
Okay. So Walter talked about the flow. Do you have any idea if that is a spring or if it's just some underground stream that ends up there?
I don't know.
You know if it runs year round?
I don't know the history of the lot too well.
Okay. It probably makes sense that we should get someone to look at that so we understand it better. Because Martha mentioned it, the concern about building a house above that somehow affecting that flow, which in turn would affect the wetlands in the vernal pool downstream. I think until we know more about that, we should be careful before we go forward. The next point I'd like to make is about the retaining wall. I want to see that pulled uphill outside of the 35-foot. And I'm not going to design a way to do it. Maybe it means a smaller yard, maybe it means the house moves forward, but either way, I'd like to see it outside the 35-foot there. I agree with the trees, maybe a yellow ribbon around the trees. And I was trying to understand how this was going to be built. And I know you have some grading shown in here, but you made a point of saying there's a walkout door from the basement and said something like it's going to improve the site or something like that. So how does this work? Is the bottom of the basement going to rest more or less at ground level? And then you're going to build above it, or you're going to dig into the ground before that basement?
Basically gonna be at the ground level. So the point of the walkout basement is to limit the amount of fill coming in on the site. So there'll be like a back slider, and they can just, it'll come right out to the grade level. So I'm showing a proposed grade of 110 at the back of the house.
Yeah.
The existing site grade is around 111, so I'd be about a foot lower. But then you can see, you know, then it continues to slope off to the back of the lot. And I'm showing the grade at the top of the proposed retaining wall at 109. So you'd still get positive flow away from the house, but it would be somewhat of a level backyard for them to walk out on, basically at grade.
Right, but you're not going to be digging down to put in the basement.
Just for the frost walls. So you still have to have 4 feet of frost protection down to the footing. So that, you know, I'm saying that the basement floor is about a foot below the existing grade. They'll have to dig down.
Yeah, then that convinces me, we absolutely have to understand where that flow comes from then, because depending on what it is, that certainly could disrupt it.
We can investigate that, Brian.
And so where you show the deck, that's actually coming out on the first floor level and the basement is at 110. So the deck comes out higher up and then has the stairs in the back.
That's right.
And so the deck is more level with the 117 at the front.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And tell me about this.
Martha, you can go ahead, but my fake hand has been up for a long time, so I'd like to go after you, please.
Great. Sorry about that, Bill. Just one last question. You show grading on the right-hand side and right where it says 112,
Yep.
there's a weird U shape.
Yep.
What's that supposed to be? Is that a depression there or a?
It's a swale.
Okay.
Creating a swale
For,
so that water doesn't move towards the abutter.
okay.
To the right. I wanted to keep any water moving back and I didn't want to direct any water onto any of the abutting properties.
So you're making a little valley for the water to come down the valley toward the backyard?
Yep.
Okay. All right. I'll give Bill a turn.
Thanks, Martha. So two things. Brian mentioned the retaining wall situation, and my thought on that was, and unless I'm misreading this, it's a structure. It's within the 35-foot zone. So this application, if that's what you intend to do, if you can't move it back the way Brian wants, I don't see why this isn't a request for a variance. And Jack, you're familiar with what that requires. So I wanted to put that out there. Also with these trees, again, Jack, you're familiar with how we work. When we have new building within our buffer zone, we typically like to see as a trade-off, not just trees. We want the overstory, the understory, and the ground layer. So I would want to see a lot more than just the trees here. I'd want to see what you're going to do about bush and ground layer cover. So as we move forward, it'd be good to see that. So those are my comments for now.
And to address your first concern, the wall will be moved out to the 35-foot line. That was an oversight on my part. I showed it right on the rear, and until tonight, when I started giving the presentation, I realized I was in your 35-foot no structure zone. That'll be relocated. And we can beef up the plantings. I show 8 trees to be done. Tom does a great job landscaping. We were planning on adding a bunch of shrubs and other smaller plants as well. We can beef up the landscaping plan to be more a mixed variety of planting species.
I'm just gonna say, while we're talking trees, I would love to see the replacement trees correspond well with the tree species that are being removed. If you're taking out a lot of oaks, I'd like to see some oaks put back in, for example.
Yep.
Doesn't have to be exactly 1-to-1, but you know, if you're taking out oaks, I don't want arborvitae.
Yeah.
So, okay. Andrew, you had your hand up?
Yeah, my question is for Tom. It's inappropriate, so if you don't answer, if you don't want, but is this sale done or is it contingent on like our decisions?
It's contingent. It's contingent on a building. So part of that process is getting the approval from this commission.
And the back lot line, that subdivision of property has already been made by the YMCA.
Correct. There's been a plan recorded at the Registry of Deeds separating this off.
And do we know what the wording of the conservation easement is for the YMCA's part?
I don't.
Okay.
It'd be nice to get, like, did they literally just square it off like that?
I wasn't part of the YMCA portion of this.
Who accepted the easement or the conservation restriction?
Easement, they call it easement.
Yeah, they call it a conservation easement. I don't know. I didn't know if that was something that went before this commission and.
Oh, so you're saying it may have been there. So I was gonna ask you about that when I was.
I think they created it, Chuck.
So I think back in the day, they wanted to create that access road up to 4th Street or whatever that project was. I thought that this conservation easement happened back then. But when you were describing the project, you said, made it seem like they just did.
I think it's just it. I think in like, within the last 2 years, this was created. Those bounds were new that we talked about. Those are relatively really new.
Well,
I can do a little homework. I didn't really do much homework on it. I didn't know if they had been before you.
not since 2020. Because I would have remembered this conservation easement going in and I have no memory of it. And that was 2020.
Okay,
So it must predate me.
I'll do some homework on it.
Yeah, because that would be good for us to know what already is in place so that we're not approving something where the conservation easement is, got other language involved.
Just while I share a lot of the concerns about what's existing there. Well, why is that? If it's standing, why is it not a vernal pool? But it's not standing water, that water's moving. So where is this water coming from? I suggest there's a spring. So I would definitely like to know what is happening with that land. And I just have concerns about, the impact of this project having on that. And if we do get further along in the development of this, I think some sections would be helpful to understand how we're getting from Forest Street down to the wetlands.
Okay.
Anybody, Walter or Bill, do you have any more comments? How about anybody here?
I've got one. It's an administrative comment. Could you have the wetland delineator include the field delineation forms in the application?
I did not, but I can.
Could you? Okay,
Yeah.
I think that's on our checklist now.
Yeah. Again, that was back to, I wasn't sure if that had already been done in the past, but I can check with Maureen from Larson and get those. Yeah.
And Chuck, did you have anything else you wanted to say?
Yeah, I have a few things that I wanted to say. Just give us a date when this was delineated. I was just looking for it on the plan.
It says in the narrative.
In the narrative, yeah.
Okay.
Wasn't that long ago. Like 2022.
Yeah, notice of intent, I did attach the narrative from Norse.
Yeah. I know that I saw that in the paperwork. So I think this will, just want to make sure that we have the right spot for the vernal pool. And I was wondering if there was paperwork because I know that Mass Mapper and not only our website shows it in a different spot. I was wondering how it's certified in this spot and what work went into figuring that out. And I know you can make phone calls, but I just wanted to know if that's, this was probably back in the day when Martha was just starting over at Reading High and the vernal pool was probably mapped out with compass and a measuring tape. But they've been trying to use GPS and correct these old ones. This one's clearly up by 4th Street. I'd like to know how that move happened. Then I wanted to know what the size of the dry well was. And I was going to ask you if you did a test pit there. To know that you have 2 feet of separation or not.
Yeah, we didn't do a test hole, so we may want to do a test hole out there.
I'm looking at the letter from Norse Environmental and the conservation restriction area is dated in 1998.
Oh.
And shows the approximate location of the certified vernal pool. So it was certified pre-1998. And I think Leo Kenny started certifying them with his students in 1990. So there's our window.
Yeah, so it would be great to find that paperwork, and usually it does give a description. They usually 25 feet straight off of Forest Street, base of the slope, blah, size of the pool. That's how it's done. Well, how it was done.
Okay, and Norse Environmental does have the same flag numbers that we were seeing.
It's an A series.
1A to 31A, but also 1B to 9B and 1C to 17C.
The Bs are the next one. I don't know any Cs. I didn't see Cs.
Yeah, I didn't get down to any Bs. I was just looking at 20A was the highest number I marked. So I didn't walk quite as far as all those flags. Okay,
Martha, the vernal pool, whatever Mass website maps the vernal pools has it marked as certified in 1992.
okay.
Okay, I'm gonna continue. So the retaining wall, what is that? How's that made? Is there, I was looking for detail, but didn't see one.
I'll talk with Tom and see what we want to do for the wall.
And how tall is?
It would be a landscape retaining wall. So I noted a landscape wall, meaning it's less than 4 feet in height.
Okay,
If I get over 4 feet in height, it becomes a structural wall. So I called it a landscape wall. I can get more detail. We'll figure out what type.
So I'm specifically interested in like the footing, if there's one.
Yeah. Okay.
Crushed stone, you know, whatever. And then the variance, someone over that before. And the replacement of trees for the understory, overstory, and ground cover. And then I had that conservation restriction question. That would be great if you could provide that to us. That restriction, so when and the paperwork. Patio coming off the back of the house. Well, I guess I said that wrong. The sliding patio door exiting the walkout basement. I don't see a landing. I don't see pavers. Have you located it here? Is it kind of like to the left of 110? And are you stepping out into?
A connection from the driveway to the stairway to the deck?
No, I just wanted to make sure you didn't forget to put in your landing. So if someone steps out, are they gonna step out onto the grass or are they gonna step out? I mean, it'd be nice to have that in place.
I'll show a landing there.
That was it.
Is there any concern that the wetlands were delineated, it looks like in 1998?
2022.
2020. It says there was a site visit. I'm misreading that.
Norris Environmental did a
Sorry.
site visit in 2022.
Sorry, conservation restriction area.
Yeah.
Which one?
Yeah, they flagged it in December of 22 and January of 23.
Right.
And did anybody have any issues with the location of any of the flags?
No.
Okay, so we're not questioning the flag locations. All right, Chuck, did you have anything else?
No, I finished.
Okay, is there members of the public that had any comments to make? That would be you, or possibly somebody on the computer?
Yeah, T Finn had his hand up, but if we can do this first.
Okay.
I said, no, I can set. Oh, good. My name is Patricia Tankash. Mrs. Moore probably had some of my nieces, nephews, or children in Reading High School. We've lived across from this parcel for 43 years. There's a reason it hasn't been developed. The slope is, I don't need to go there. My concern is just simply, I understand the developer is interested in developing, but what has happened with all the development in Reading is that this small undeveloped parcel has really turned into the Grand Central Station of animals over there. It seems to be the last spot between Birch Meadow, behind Coolidge, across Forest Street, to the vernal pools and all that are behind our property.
We have noticed with all the development in Reading, this has really become a funnel. The deer, the turkeys, all that. Significantly though are the turtles. We have a whole group of turtles that go back and forth across Forest Street. Whether they're endangered or not I don't know. I grew up in Manhattan. To see any animal is a big treat. But to see these turtles trying to navigate across Forest Street, and it's always the same direction. They come up from behind Coolidge, they try to lumber across Forest Street with the 50-mile-an-hour pickup trucks going by. They come across to our property and go down the side and make a beeline as best they can to the vernal pools behind our house.
Did you ever take pictures of those turtles?
I can describe them. You know, I usually see,
Green and yellow?
yes, there have been turtles that have yellow on their back and also this kind of green mottling that goes from the throat down the neck and under the shell. We've seen some reddish, almost reddish mahogany, darker red, also the neck down to under the shell. We have seen, actually the most amazing was bright yellow turtles from the neck, you know, going down.
Are these turtles bigger or smaller than a foot?
I guess they're around this size. They're something to see. Yeah. And we see them, and I just think it's something also to be considered as you look at this. The vernal pools are active, the peepers and all, and these turtles seem to really have some kind of pathway across Forest Street and down our backyard.
And what number forest are you?
111.
111 forest.
And if you want to come, we can show, you know, you're welcome anytime to look, but it's an active pathway and it's unusual, but it's active. And all the other animals are funneling through this last undeveloped piece. And it's 4 seasons of the year. They travel through the swale of our property and they stay on the other side of our property that does not have the driveway. So the trails are significant. They are always there. We can set our clock, you know, they come through, sometimes 6 deer at a time, the coyote, the wildlife. So it's a real change. You know, living there 43 years, we've really seen what was a quiet suburban area now with all of Reading being quite developed. This last unspoiled parcel on Forest Street, it may carry more significance than it did even 20 years ago, you know, just because of how everything else has been squished in on it. So I am in awe of all your abilities here to ask questions and follow this. This is the first time in 43 years we've ever come. But it is significant, this piece of land, because once the bulldozers go in, you're not going to get it back. You know, it is, and we're talking about the risk benefit. Well, the risk is significant to wildlife and all. And the benefit is one house for 2, 3, 4 people. You know, the risk benefit at some point starts to feel a little out of sync, given the times we are in. 40 years ago, but now it feels like it's the last parcel that's undeveloped between Forest Street and the North Reading line. And the animals can go through our back. They're out in the protected woodlands behind us. They can go out to the town forest and probably out to the Ipswich River, following that pathway. So I just thought it was important to come and speak to you directly and tell you kind of the boots on the ground, what we see going on, which has been a significant change from our 43 years history. My kids would run down the trails to go behind Coolidge, not that they were late for school, but there was always water down there too. I will say the water, there may be a stream that comes and goes, but there's always been water. There's always been vernal pools. And the traffic to our vernal pools in the back persists. So if anyone needs to come out and see our backyard or see the pathways, you're welcome to that.
I was wondering before you step away, if you could just describe the turtles a little bit better than you saw.
As I say, the sizes, some are all black. They're pretty fierce looking. There are some that have, as I say, I'm trying to, see them in my mind, the reddish coloring going all down with a black shell. The ones that have a bright yellow, it's really something to see the shell on top, but then the yellow is that yellow.
Is there any yellow on the shell?
Yes, sometimes there's yellow on the shell. And then there's another one that has, the shell that has kind of green and yellow dots, speckles on it. And then this kind of, as I say, green mottling that goes all the way down. So if I had a picture, I'd show you, but in all honesty, when you see them, I'm just like, oh my God, look at that. And I don't think to have the phone with me, but they are there.
Have you seen them out yet this year?
Not yet.
Yeah.
Not yet. No. No, in the spring, it seems they start lumbering across Forest Street. And I've seen them in the fall too. They're on the move. So something else that I felt you should know, because we've lived there so long, we see this.
And that migration is generally because the females are going to lay eggs in sandy places.
Yes, I would guess. I mean, because there's a huge vernal pool just outside our backyard and, they seem to, and the backyard, our whole back path out there is all protected. So they may be even more protected there than they are in the one vernal pool behind pool.
Do you know what protection that is? Is that conservation restriction that where there used to be a horse farm, or are you thinking it's actual conservation land?
I just wonder why you always owned it and nothing ever disturbed it.
Yeah, that's on the other side of Forest Street. But what about your side of Forest Street? Do you say it's protected back there, but do you know what it is? If you don't, you can look on the town GIS and find out.
It's wetland, protected wetland. Yeah, most of our properties, we own more of our property is protected wetlands than it is property. Right?
It might be the wrong word. It's just.
Wet.
Oh, thank you. I hear your concern and I am worried about that as a corridor.
What is this?
The Carter has just gotten more active, that's all.
It's not the last. Will always be other little patches, but I think it is an actual concern here.
That's
that we
my
have,
house, and there's the conservation.
This
land,
is that.
But it's all wetland down there, so
Thank you.
this is not actually protected. This is wetland. Yeah. Okay, yeah, we were just looking at the map because there's a piece of conservation land that's like 2 lots over behind you that used to be my property, and we donated to the town, and it's now protected conservation land. So I was wondering how you lined up with that. But
in the vicinity.
Yeah, in the vicinity sounds right, but yeah, there's lots of
Riley, my son's best friend lived on 92 Van Norden.
Mhm.
And that lines up.
Yeah, we were 110.
Oh.
And we knew them.
Yes. Everybody did.
Right, yeah, okay, but yeah, there is a lot of wetland back there. And there's back in the 90s, there was the town had asked to try to preserve all those backyards and make that a big chunk of conservation land. And there's 2, but there's a lot that haven't been conserved in between. Okay, All right, so now we know where we are.
Should we move to continue?
Yeah. I think that's the appropriate thing. Is there any more discussion for tonight?
Is there someone on the phone?
Oh, yeah, you had somebody else who had their hand up, Chuck?
Yes.
T. Finn?
Yeah, let me get to, T. Finn, if you, just unmute yourself. State your name, and address for the record, ask your question, and I see that Kathy has.
My name is Tom Finn. I'm at 126 Forest Street. I border this proposed land. I will stand with Mrs. Takash regarding the wildlife, the animals, and the deer, and the fox, and the coyotes, and the ducks, and the eagles, and the hawks. I mean, we've got everything down in there for animals, the turtles. But one thing is, there is a river that runs under Forest Street. Now, from the corner of Bethune Road or Street or whatever they've named it, I forget. It runs right along behind those new houses, goes under Forest Street, comes back out under Forest Street, and runs down along I guess where those red lines are, maybe. I thought that came over and that swings around and feeds that vernal pool and everything right over there. Because it goes behind the two houses to the left of where they want to build. But she says, I've been here 43 years. The curbstones, the granite curbstones that are on the corner of each of the lot, the one on my side of the lot's been there at least 35 to 40 years. That's nothing new. That's always been there as long as I've lived here. And I've been here 43 years, and I'm guessing it was there when I moved here.
When you say curbstone, you mean like a property marker kind of curbstone?
Yes.
Okay.
There's one there, and there's one further down Forest Street that they have, I believe they dug it up when they were doing the surveying. And they have pink flags in them. If you went out and walked the lot, you might have seen the pink flags.
We did.
Okay, well, those are the granite markers for each one, and they're nothing new. Those markers have been there as long as I've been here. The YMCA was refused, as someone brought up one time, work to be done there because of a vernal pool that they wanted to do. What I want to know is from number 61, are we sure that there's not a vernal pool going any closer to the property line, that new property line?
Oh, I see.
Oh.
Or are we sure that number 61, right at number 61, there's not a vernal pool? Because if there is, it's going to change everything.
Yeah, I was out there today and flag number 61 did not look like it could be a vernal pool to me. It was only when we got down to where it's marked as 109, 110 on the plan. So Chuck would have to move the plan a little further. That's where the vernal pool is. And that did seem accurate for what I saw out in the field today. But I'm concerned about the spring that comes out of the ground at about 61. That is the water source for the vernal pool.
Well, that's what I'm looking at it coming one way, and you're looking at it going another way. But yeah, I would be concerned either way. There's got to be somewhere that water's coming from.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing is the drainage. You're going to allow the drainage to get down a driveway and right out into the wetlands?
Good question.
I mean, yeah, you're going to have trees there, you're going to have a wall, but you know the water's going to soak in the ground and go running out under the wall. The other thing is the 1,000-gallon what dry well? Where is that gonna, when that fills up or gets to a point that it needs to be drained, where's it gonna drain out? It's gonna drain out into the yard and right down into the conservation land or the wetlands?
That's what we expect to happen. I mean, it's set pretty deep in the ground, so it's below the first 2 feet of soil, which is what usually gets saturated when there's a heavy rainstorm. So rain, the runoff from the roof and any of these impervious surfaces are picked up by this infiltration system, will put the groundwater or that water into the groundwater, which is below that surface water that's usually affected by rain. So the two systems will work separately, and typically there's a 72-hour kind of window that it doesn't hold it for 72 hours, but it releases it slowly over 72 hours.
But over 72 hours, where's it gonna go?
It's deep in the ground and it's part of the groundwater. It's not part of that. It wouldn't be part of that first 2 inches that would flood your house. 2 feet, sorry, the 2 feet that would be a flood concern.
Okay,
Do you have more questions?
no, that's about it. I think Mrs. Takash seemed to answer a lot of them.
All right, I would like to ask Jack Sullivan if he would come back to the podium and just address the question of what you're thinking of for the water on the driveway. How are you going to handle that water on the driveway?
Okay.
Okay. And could I just ask, I'll answer that. The gentleman who was on the phone, I think the granite markers he was talking about, I think there's some old markers out towards Forest Street. I think the ones at the rear of the lot were the new ones. So
Okay, I was talking about the ones out on Forest Street.
Okay, I just want to correct so the commission thought, I believe the ones out to the rear are new. The ones out to the front, I agree, have probably been there.
You say new, give me an idea what you're saying new, because the YMC, you're the second, as far as you did the land surveying?
So if I can. It was, I think it was Medford Engineering or Troy and Mead, or I think it was Medford Engineering did the work for the YMCA.
Okay,
So that was done, they probably did their survey work 2 or 3 years ago.
Approximately, I'm gonna say 8 years ago, this land was surveyed by the YMCA, and going down on the left-hand side on that hill, there was granite markers put in. I believe granite markers were in that hill, and there were also wooden stakes put in with the orange tape going crisscross there. So they were probably put in, I'm gonna say probably 8-10 years ago, easy.
Okay, Mr. Finn, I think we got it. We did see the boundary markers you're talking about, but I think we got the gist of your comment. Thank you.
All right.
As far as drainage for the driveway, I'll have to look at that. I was just gonna have the water move off. I could put in some sort of capture system like a trench drain, and then have some treatment like a deep sump manhole and tie it out into some infiltration system, kind of like the dry well. So like, just to add to what Chuck was saying, what I'm tasked with is I need to provide a drainage system that's at least 2 feet above the seasonal high groundwater table. That way, water that moves into that drainage system has the ability to infiltrate into the soil below. You don't want to be into a saturated soil that's in groundwater. So when you were asking, where's this water going? It infiltrates back through the soil, and I need at least 2 feet of native soil above the groundwater table, and that's where that water goes to. So I'd have to do something on the driveway side as well to capture some of that runoff. Sometimes I do some trench drains, or I do some crushed stone, drip trenches. But I can look at beefing that up. We're gonna be continuing this hearing anyway, so I'll need, I have some work to do on this.
So we have Kathy also here, but just before we go on, I was kind of concerned when I started hearing about turtles and the description. So we're always worried about Blanding's turtle and box turtle. And I'm wondering why those weren't what was described based on this habitat. So I don't know what Tony has to say to that, but
The large one sounds like a snapping turtle, big, black and fierce.
well, I was waiting for her to say prehistoric looking,
Yeah,
and I didn't hear that.
fierce is close enough,
Okay.
especially big. Yellow on the neck. Could be Blandings, could be painted. See painted turtles, sometimes they have yellow, sometimes they have the red.
Didn't hear orange, yeah.
Orange, they kind of.
But that could have been the brown.
Yeah, the yellow on yellow spots on the shell, I don't think we would expect spotted turtles here. They tend to be more open water pond species, I think.
Yeah, I think that, yeah, well,
A
that
spotted
was
turtle
my
is
thought. It was
semi-aquatic.
more or less, hey, we've delineated the wetland, but have we identified the extent of the vernal pool and that vernal pool habitat, which might, intersect into turtle habitat? And if it was such a thing, specifically fencing and things like that need to be elevated.
If it's Blandings,
differently.
that would, I think those are state listed. So that would become a priority habitat.
Well, like I said, from this description, the yellow here bothered me. Well, not bothered me, but struck curiosity.
Yeah. So the turtles is something we definitely need to look into. And if you see any turtles crossing the street, get your camera out.
If they don't make it across the street, put them in a plastic bag and throw them in your freezer.
Well,
that's what I do.
Natural heritage also, or, mass wildlife. All that. Yeah, it's kind of interesting.
Yeah. Okay.
Kathy.
Yeah.
Hey, Kathy, could you state your name for the record? Unmute yourself, name and address, please.
My name is Kathy McGlathry, 104 Forest Street. I'm 2 lots down from this lot on the same side of the street, and share the wooded area with that spot. One of the things, I think a lot has been covered here that I would otherwise say, but I think one of the things that really comes to mind for me is the integrity of the vernal pool itself in the context of the homeowner's maintenance of the lot. There's a lot, it's a downward sloping lot. We know that, human behavior, they're going to want to come in with rake their leaves over the back of the lot. They're going to, they're likely to have grass services come in and pour chemicals on to have nice lawns. I mean, they care about their yard. And this is a particularly sensitive area. We know, the pond hasn't officially been surveyed for a long time, but one of my sons is very interested in vernal pools and has within the last couple of years gone to look at that pool and found fairy shrimp. That's the species that if it's present, it's a vernal pool because they only live in vernal pools.
Kathy, are you talking about the one in the back or the one up front? I'll put it on the screen if you.
I'm talking about the one in the back toward Coolidge.
Okay, that's. I think we know that that's possibly
I think it is a vernal pool back
It's
there.
the certified vernal pool. I think that's the one that Leo Kenny certified. So it's that one that on this map here. Yeah, that one. Yeah. Yeah. So,
And your son found fairy shrimp in that pool
yes,
fairly recently.
yes. Yeah,
Okay.
I'd have to call him to ask him, but it's within 2 or 3 years.
Did he
Um,
check the area above that? Maybe
That's a
below.
good question. I don't know. He went out in the back, came back and said, still fairy shrimp there. So it's the certified vernal pool that's not really in question, but my concern is whether if you were to grant the ability to build a house, do you have any way to regulate future behavior to protect the species in that pool and the species who live around that pool? And I guess that's the gist of my comment. There is a lot of, we hear American toads, peepers, other things in there. So it is an excellent habitat. Plus, we see all the things the other people have mentioned.
Thanks,
Okay.
Kathy. If your son has any pictures of turtles, that will, he's remember that.
I'll ask him.
In relation to that, can we add the 200-foot vernal pool line to the site plan? We have the 100-foot buffer zone on the map, but can we add the 200-foot?
There is no 200-foot.
What's that?
There is no 200-foot buffer zone from a vernal pool.
Well,
You have 100-foot from a vernal pool. There's no 200-foot protection.
That's true.
I think in River.
I just wanted,
Riverfront's
I
200.
didn't mean to call it a buffer zone. I wanted to just see
Oh,
the 200-foot line
False.
falls.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's, I just kind of want to know.
Right, you're not saying it's jurisdictional, just you'd like it for information
Yeah,
purposes.
informational
Well,
purposes.
for informational purposes, I can show it. It doesn't really hold any weight.
No, that's
Understood.
true, but
Okay.
there was someplace else where we asked for a 200-foot line just for reference.
Information, I can do that. That's fine. Yeah,
That's what you're thinking?
Yes.
Okay.
that's fine.
All right. Okay, just for the record, Bill McCants did sign off at 10 o'clock. So we're down one commissioner and it's getting pretty late. So are there any other people on the phone that are waiting to have a chance to speak?
I don't know if Kathy, yeah, she took her hand down, and Tom Finn stands back up.
Okay.
I have just one question.
Yeah,
The-
if you can make it brief because we're running late.
Yeah, I am. It's just one question. The marker number 61,
Mhm.
should we have somebody look in that area between the 100-foot buffer zone and that marker is 61 to see if that's a vernal pool? Or if any of that area actually between marker 58 and 61 is a vernal pool?
That's a possibility. We can discuss that. Thank you.
On that note, we want to move to continue.
Yeah,
Second.
okay.
Thank you.
Did I hear a second? Did I hear a second to continue? Hello? Hello?
Ah,
Right now,
can you hear us now? Okay, now Walter's muted.
now you're well.
There.
I'm good. It says the sound, it said the monitor.
Technology.
Okay, we're all now unmuted. So it has been moved to continue to April 24th and Tony has seconded.
Walter Talbot in favor.
Tony Woodalakis in favor.
Yes.
Rainbow in favor.
Martha Moore in favor, that's 500. Okay, all right.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks,
Thank
Jack.
you.
Thank you.
I hope you all had dinner before you came here. Thanks again.
Yeah,
Thank you.
okay.
Very nice to meet you. All right. Very nice to meet you. So I live over by Harold Park. They gotta continue. Oh, so we gotta-
If you guys want to talk out there, we have more work to do.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye now.
All right, so yeah, we couldn't really do anything further on that till we have a file number anyway.
Right.
Okay. So a suggestion was made to find out whether the upper layers are vernal pool, and that could be discussed next time, right?
Yep, that would be all fine. Yeah, I don't know. Tony, did you go out there?
I didn't make the
I
same.
bet you Tony would, I would gather, I'd hazard a guess that Tony would find his way out there between now and the next meeting.
There's too much water.
Maybe another site visit. Tony, let everyone know when you're going out there.
And it wasn't,
You're
it
gonna get
wasn't
some-
deep. I'd love to go with you. So if you have an opinion, I could
Mhm.
hear what you're saying. So just shoot me a text or an email.
Yeah. Yeah, it didn't look like a vernal pool to me.
So we can't really discuss it too much
Right.
more now that we.
Right.
Okay,
yeah,
so
But it would be good to have your opinion. And the question is, do we get a third party review? or
So
not,
next item.
right?
10:15.
Okay, Community Preservation Act Committee, vote for Commission's liaison. If anybody else would like to be the liaison to Community Preservation Act Committee, I would be happy to have some volunteers, but I also have volunteered that I'm willing to do it if it fits my schedule. It can't be a Wednesday or a Thursday, in other words.
Sure, let's go with Martha. Can we get a vote on that?
Anybody else competing for that spot?
Great.
Okay,
I'm in favor of that.
I wouldn't expect that. You did a great job at the SWAT committee. That was a lot of work.
Give him a few weeks break.
Well, there's the
Okay.
Okay, so now is
so
the
vote
Azalea
and
Circle?
second, moved in second. Walter, do you approve of me being our committee's liaison?
Walter Talbot's in favor.
Tony Woodalakis in favor.
In favor.
Okay, 500. I'll be the liaison if it fits my schedule. If it doesn't, we'll have to come back to the committee and try again.
Yeah, so it's important to have a conservation member on this committee, not only because I really elevated that request, but by statute, you would be part of the Community Preservation Committee. It's required that a conservation member is on that committee. So, and you have to be a sitting member. So it's not an associate member, it's not someone blah, blah, blah.
Not a former member. Yeah.
No one like that. So we'd really, and I think that would be super important because, you know, we would present projects and you know, you would be our liaison to that committee to tell them about our projects and why they're important and to help them move forward and to keep us abreast of how things happen. So it would be super important to fill this role, not only picking other projects to spend the money if it ever was passed.
So I have a
No.
question about that. Recently, an email came around from Laura asking for volunteers. So if somebody on the commission were to volunteer as a private citizen, is that an issue with the official?
No, you could be both, but we can't even find one for, you know, like, it's like you want to be a volunteer.
I wanted to, but see, if you're just volunteering to show up, maybe the responsibility level is less.
No, it's not, because when they made their criteria, it was and community and residents. And I
Yeah.
think that's the volunteer she's asking to fill those roles.
Okay.
So it would have the same amount of responsibility, but
I was just
except
curious.
maybe they're not a voting member. I remember there was like ad hoc and not, but whatever. We can move on.
50
Good.
Azalea.
Okay, so tell us about 50 Azalea Circle, Chuck.
So the owner has been, trying to get that house ready to be sold for a while. And, there was a request by the people that are proposing to buy the house that some of these old orders of conditions that pertain to this address in this lot be closed out. So we found them all, and what the ask is that some of them have, no work has begun, is the answer to most of these. And Form 8A has a section to check off that says no work has begun. So what we're doing with most of these ones are administrative, in my opinion. I didn't know if Bill McCant would have had some comment, but he's not here. So I'm going to say, in my opinion, if you have an order of conditions, it does just hang out there. It was recorded. And in order to get that off your deed and to close it out, and no work was done, there is that check off box. And that can work for a lot of these. So the first one, 270162, is for the roadway. And this was a Carnation Circle, a big development. The roadway seems to be something to enter the lot, and the lots were identified, and it was part of that big development. No work was done during that project. There's 270442, and yeah, so no work was done on that one either, and that was in 2005. And don't know the history of that, but I know the next one, they got an order of conditions, and yeah, K Street Realty got an order of conditions, but they didn't do any work. Again, it was left alone. The next one is 609-270-0609. Again, what we're saying, but no work was done. It's the same thing. Again, 50 Azalea Circle, issued to Madeline Fafad, which is associated with K Street Realty. I'm not going to say one and the same, but I think it's like they're connected somehow. That might be the business. This might be someone in the family. So a lot of the deeds say both, and that's Carnation Circle too. They got permits to build. They went to DEP. They got a superseding order. There's actually an extra one that they have to go to DEP to have resolved. And then this last one.
So no work was done on that either?
Work was done on that one either. You know, fortunately, the only one that work was done on is the one that's in place right now, that the house was built on, and that Deb Giotti Ghosh, who's the developer of that area, is working under right now, and that will not be closed out in this process. So this last one, 270-0609, again, no work was done. It was, some of these were a lot scary. I think at one point, two houses with two separate driveways were approved, but that never went through. They didn't move in time, and the order of conditions expired. And so these are a bunch of orders of conditions that have some relevance. I would say the road one and the next one, we should give them a partial order of conditions or a partial approval, because I think they have to do with the entire development and not just this lot. But the next two are specific to this lot, and they would get a complete certificate of compliance.
This seems like above my pay grade, but wouldn't any new order of conditions void out?
Doesn't void it, no. They're just hanging out there.
I don't know how to.
Yeah.
It's administrative.
And when you say partial order of conditions for the roadway ones, is that because we're only approving that piece of the roadway and we won't make any approval of any other part of the roadway?
Yeah, so in Form 8B, it says that we're checking off partial order of conditions, and then you write in, you know, this lot number for 50 Azalea Circle, lot number, formerly whatever, and that we're approving or saying that everything on that lot is complete and satisfactory to the Conservation Commission. So others in Carnation Circle who have issues, and what we're worried about is a drainage system that wasn't maintained, and we don't know where that is, but it certainly wasn't on this lot. And some other things, you know, the Carnation Circle has to come in and close out their own section of this when they feel like they want to. We have an as-built plan specifically for Azalea Circle, 50 Azalea Circle, and so that's all we can address our approval for.
Okay.
So I did try to get Mr. Ghosh in on the meeting, but can you unmute?
What do you need from us?
You, just like a regular certificate of compliance, you would just go through the list and say you approve and you want to issue a certificate of compliance.
And do we need to do each one separately?
I think so.
So can we start in on a bunch of motions here and work our way through them?
Yeah, so you would make a motion, you would motion to approve 50 Azalea Circle, DEP file number 2700709. And that would be one of the newer ones, so that would be for a full certificate of compliance, that specific to this lot.
Okay, can we start with that one?
So moved.
Yeah, there you go.
Seconded by Brian.
Was it Tony who moved?
Yes.
Okay, Tony moved.
Walt Talbot's in favor.
Frank Woodalakis in favor. Andrew Gibbon in favor.
Brian Bowe in favor.
Martha Moore in favor. 500, it passed. And are we keeping track of that file number?
270-0609.
Oh, that was 0709.
0709.
It says 0709 on the front, but I just noticed like the second page is 0608.
Well, no, it's a different one. I'm looking at the PDFs on the website.
So just, yeah, so just, we have an 0609. Okay, so friendly amendment to make that 270, an approval for 270-0609 for a full certificate of compliance.
So moved.
Okay. Do we have to vote on that friendly amendment?
I don't know. I'm not a parliamentarian.
Okay. All right, let's assume we're good. Okay, so that first one we all approved was 0609. The next one we're going to vote on is what number?
270-0608.
Did everyone vote on it? That's what I have here. So someone would make a motion to accept 50 Azalea Circle, DEP file number 270-0608 for a full.
That's a full, okay.
Yeah, certificate of compliance.
Well, this is so moved. Seconded.
Walter Talbot's in favor.
Tony Woodalakis in favor. Andrew Gibbon in favor.
Brian Bowe in favor.
They all say.
Martha Moore in favor. That was moved by Tony, seconded by Andy, 5-0 in favor.
And the
Okay,
next one here shows 270-162.
One six two is the roadway, from what I remember. So this is going to be a partial certificate of compliance, so we're going to, someone's going to make a motion.
Make a motion to,
Azalea Circle, DEP file number 270-07.
162.
162 for a partial certificate of compliance.
okay,
So moved. Wanted to give Martha time to catch up.
Mhm.
Sandy, I'll second.
Walter Talbot's in favor.
Tony Woodalakis in favor. Andrew Gibbon in favor.
Brian Bowe in favor.
Martha Moore in favor.
The last
Moved
one,
by Tony, seconded by Andy, passed 5-0.
the last one I see in here is 270-442.
I have 492, which you see it.
I'm just looking at the link in the website.
Cover letter says 442.
442, okay. Someone would make a motion for 50 Azalea Circle for a,
Wait, hold on. Yeah, it's 442. It's a sloppy 4. It looks like a 9 on one of the pages. But it's 4.
EVP file number 270-442 for a partial certificate of compliance.
So moved.
Seconded by Andy.
Walter Talbot's in favor.
Woodalakis in favor. In favor.
Brian Bowe in favor.
Martha Moore in favor. Moved by Tony, seconded by Andy, 5-0 in favor.
Yeah, Mr. Ghosh, I unmuted you, but I haven't heard you talk, but I think it was a favorable outcome. If you, I mean, you could try to email me if you have any questions, or you could use the call in, but if you're okay, maybe you can just use the raise hand function and do thumbs up if you're good with what we just approved. If you have any questions, email me. I have my iPad right here. And we'll look, oh, I see thumbs up. Great. Okay, we're good to move on. I just want to let you know that Josh Latham's been here and he wants an update on the CR that everyone's been signing. And so I'm going to let Josh Latham in for that right now. And I think that the answer might be that we're all comfortable with it. We've just been struggling to get all the members scattered throughout COVID to sign the document, but only have one left. Josh, are you available? State your name, address for the record.
So we're jumping to the administrator's report on the agenda.
Josh off that.
Yep, no, that's fine. I'm just for the record saying we've jumped down to number 12, administrator's report.
Okay, I don't
Josh there?
see Josh. Josh, are you available to talk to the commission? I made him co-host. And leave that out there.
Okay.
Send him an email.
Okay, should we go to the next?
Yeah, go on. I'll just fill this in.
Which is the violation notices and no real changes. I think we added 445 Pearl Street just to remind us to come back around to it.
That's the one with the stream bank erosion problem that hasn't been solved yet. So I checked it out as I drove by to some other site visit and said, what's going on with this? We should really put this back on the agenda so we don't forget about it.
Okay, so next thing is Bear Meadow.
And that has already been continued to April 24th.
Next is
And
DPW.
conservation, yeah, the DPW meeting on May 7th. I'm pretty sure I can be there for that.
Pretty sure I want to be there for that. Yeah, I'm open.
Yeah, I can be there for that. Okay, it's in my calendar. Okay, do we have any bills?
We don't, but I'll bring some in. I'll bring some in. So there was some tree damage. Now I'm just gathering my thoughts. There was some tree damage at Bear Meadow when they put the path in, and there was some tree damage going up the cart path. And I wanted to buy some repair for that tree damage. And I had talked to an arborist, and they recommended, and I'm looking this up quickly, a product that you could just smear on with like a putty knife. So that's what I ordered, 4 tubes of it, because it comes into small tubes.
Yeah.
Hold on a second.
This is when they were putting down that stone dust path around the outside edge of the field, right?
Yeah,
And that's the tree that has the bark damage done.
yeah, that's the one. Well, anyways, it's I don't know the name of it. It's
And how expensive is this goop that you put on the tree?
$18 a tube. It's about
Actually, we're
$100.
2 trees ahead, as far as I'm.
Yeah. There's 2 trees that I know of.
That's all I saw.
Who damaged it?
The DPW,
Why isn't it on their bills?
because they put the trail in for us.
They do what?
They put the entire trail in for us.
Like
They were doing us a favor.
I like your thinking. Okay, are we done?
Tubes at $18 a tube?
Yeah.
A motion, we approve that.
I second.
Even if it was.
I got it.
The tube.
Black balsam.
My favorite.
It's like,
Oh, I've seen trees where they've put black stuff.
yeah,
And that keeps the infection from getting in there, right?
yeah. Yeah, well, that's what I wanted to get some advice because sometimes it heals itself. And, you know, the bark grows in and it becomes tight again. But these ones looked like something that we needed to work on. So I had no cost to the commission, someone that I know came over and made a recommendation.
Did
It
you,
wasn't Mike Hanford.
did you think of looking at the one coming up from the parking lot of Matera where it was nicked?
Yeah, that's the second tree that I'm doing.
Okay, well, there's two on the new path, right next to each other. Then there's that one coming up the hill from the parking lot.
I thought I would need 3 tubes to do what I want. So there's a extra tube around.
Okay, that's fine.
But so I got a little bit more, or I will get a little bit more, and we'll order that tomorrow.
And are you volunteering to be the one who does the treatment?
Yeah, doesn't seem like it's, yeah, too tough. I mean,
Are you trained with that? Are you licensed?
I've patched some walls a lot. I'm hoping it's very similar to joint compound.
Okay, so let's put that on the bed.
Okay, so we had a motion and a second. Walter?
Walter Talbot's in favor.
Been in favor.
Brian Bowe in favor?
Martha Moore in favor, and I didn't catch who the motion and who the second was.
Motion. Brian second.
Tony moved, Brian second. Okay.
Next one is the admin report. We already covered that. That's the CR. So then we're down to minutes for approval.
Okay, the only thing that I saw was that you marked that I was running the meeting, but Brian was really
And
running
I
the
actually
meeting.
sent some comments and Chuck, that was one of the ones I sent.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Anybody else have an
the
issue?
place where it says down spots instead of spouts, minor things like that.
Yeah.
The only edit I have is DEP, capital D, capital E, capital P.
Okay.
Control H.
Okay.
I have your comments. The only other one was DEP.
We have enough votes.
So this is Brian. I make a motion to approve the minutes for March 27th.
Tony seconds.
Andrew, abstain.
Brian second. Sorry.
Sorry.
Is it midnight yet?
Okay. Brian moved, Tony seconded.
Walter Talbot's in favor.
Andrew, you've been abstain.
Brian Bowe in favor.
Martha Moore in favor.
To adjourn.
Seconded.
Okay. 4 with 1 abstain, was Andy.
Yeah, just one more comment before we accept that. Carl Saccone said Friday works. Brian, my go-to guy for all things getting signed.
Okay, I just need,
You want to take the CR back and
Yeah.
connect with Carl?
do you have it with you? Yeah, you
Yeah.
must. I'll need his address again. I mean, I was there for the project, but that was a while ago.
Okay,
You just text me the address.
that's all.
Okay, so we had a move to adjourn at 10:36. All in favor, hands up. Okay,
Hallelujah.
Good night.
Yes.
good night.
Good night, Walter.
Good night, Walter.
Okay.
Josh, are you there?
Hey, Chuck, I am. I just wanted to make sure if there are any questions, but it sounds like we're all set, so.
Oh, good. Yeah,
And all done.
okay. And we'll get that
Have a great
signed,
night.
and it'll be back at Town Hall by Monday, okay?
Many thanks. Have a good one.
Reasonable.